Um, what was it? Or how do we lead into this?
You were asking about it had to do with the man bear society conditioning men to expect sex from women after saving them in the forest.
Oh yeah, that like everything
And I
is
was
just kind of
basically
like
saying,
everything is
oh, and
kind of like
complaining about bad dates and stuff.
sure, everything is kind of like oriented around like male desire is kind of what I was getting at. I don't know if there's any more to go down to that.
Yeah, no, I think that historically is undeniable. I think presently I would probably say it's the exact opposite, but
Presently, wait,
definitely
what's the exact
finding common
opposite? Say
ground.
what's the exact opposite?
I think presently things are oriented in a way that like prioritizes female preferences over male preferences.
Do you not think that's just because we're not used to seeing it sometimes, and so it's a bit of a surprise, and so a bit them being a little bit pushed out because the space is becoming a bit more equal, that it's fresh.
You mean like in media and stuff?
Yeah, or even if I were to
Yeah,
ask you, like when you say like it's more geared towards women, what do you mean by that? Like, what can you give me an example of like what you think is like this is more geared towards women now?
Geared towards women, like I guess if you're talking about like art, TVs, movies.
What do you wait? But how?
video
But how?
games.
How? Yeah.
Yeah, like it's created. Okay, how? What do we like? What do we think? I guess like a woman would think about this, or like the general woman would think about this, and would they like this? And if the answer is yes, then yes, and if the answer is no, then find something else. I think that's probably how a lot of the thought processes sees go. At least if it were to happen one way, I think that would
Do
be
you think?
the most
Well, I
likely way
guess
that it
more
happens.
specifically, do you think there's content that's being made with that frame in mind, where like a man wouldn't like it?
Well, I mean, I didn't even watch Barbie, or K-pop Demon Hunters, or so like I guess I would have to watch it and really see if I liked it or not, or like Wicked. Like I didn't watch Wicked. I don't know. I know some.
But do you think those were made for women?
Well,
Barbie?
The new Barbie movie? I don't think so. I would probably say like the Ghostbusters with the women is like maybe a movie made for women more than the Barbie one.
Really?
Yeah, I mean Barbie's got fucking Ken in it,
yeah,
and
that
it's
is true. Yes, that's
literally
large,
a
maybe.
pretty big.
Maybe yeah.
But isn't Ken like a character that's meant to appeal to women though, not men?
Wait, isn't that part of his?
No?
Is that his arc?
I didn't watch the movie.
Mutin, was that his arc? I'm sure it's been a long time.
I didn't watch the movie.
Oh fuck! Then shut the fuck up.
But does it even matter if even if it doesn't appeal to you, and it's in theory, even if it appeals more to a female audience, does it matter? Are you talking about like a handful of films over the past decade, even, right?
Well, yeah, no, because I guess what I'm saying is like I'm saying if it were the case that like gender appeal is a determinant factor in like the media that's being created, I think generally speaking, it's probably not much of a factor to be considered. But like if you are to say, hey, there's a movie that's going to come out and it's meant to appeal to one gender, what, like, if you bet your money, do you think it's going to be a female geared movie or male geared movie or male men women geared movie? I would probably say it's probably going to be like more like a women geared movie if that were to happen. Not that I think that it's.
I mean, there's
Okay,
so
so what
many
is
male-geared kind of action films that are made.
See, and I'm glad you said that actually, because when we talk about male geared stuff, like I don't even what do you think you can even what do you personally think you can say is male geared in a way that wouldn't kind of like invite the scorn of people saying that you're kind of like being sexist against women for thinking that they don't have interest in whatever you're about to say? I'm curious, like what's an example where you would say where you don't believe women would object to the fact that it is male geared?
I would say
anime.
Top Gear, like the new
That's
fucking
not
Top
anime.
Gear was a male geared movie. I don't think
Okay.
the average woman would give a fuck about planes in the fucking air shooting each other.
Top Gun?
Yeah, Top Gun. Sorry, not Top Gear.
Okay, I guess maybe I'll say original film that isn't based off of a film that was created, that isn't like kind of like part of a series of films that existed kind of like in like the 80s and stuff. But I think that's a good example. Yes, I would agree with Top Gun, but I guess maybe I would think more like original-ish.
I feel like I
type
would actually.
films.
I think I would actually fight on that, and I would actually point that this is again. I think this is like part of the problem that like movies that were made for society that are championing like certain traits that we would call masculine traits. We've called these masculine traits, but they're really traits that like everybody would like. Like in Top Gun, there's a female pilot, right? Like she's
Yeah, there is now. Yeah.
and I think I would say anybody
yeah.
could watch Top Gun and enjoy it. Right? Did Peach come
I
to that movie with you?
agree. No, she wouldn't like that movie, but that's kind of why I brought it up because I just don't think she would give a fuck about it at all.
Didn't Melina came, right? We were right?
Yeah, Melina was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she liked it.
Oh, there you go.
Or does she not count as a woman to you, Mutin? Problem.
She's Swedish.
Oh,
Well, to be honest.
Okay, true.
I mean, like, horror films usually appeal more to a male audience, I'd assume.
I don't
I
know.
wouldn't
My
assume
wife
that.
loves horror films, and I fucking hate them.
I think that can be true, but I think that I would be careful for that because old horror films are very like the plot design is very male centric, right? Have you ever seen the movie Scream?
Yeah, yeah.
Like Scream was the first like kind of big satire on a lot of the designs, right? That you have to have like the virgin female character. If she has sex, that means she's gonna die. Like these were very
Black
like,
guy dies first.
well, yeah. I don't know.
I think I did watch Top Gun.
Did you watch Top Gun Maverick, the new one? Did we watch it?
It's the one where there's like that guy that everyone thinks is hot and he goes in like a plane, but it's like one of the fast ones.
Yeah, I mean, kinda, yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, I think the guy was hot. That's all I can remember.
Tom
And then-
Cruise?
Yeah, and yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Do you think if someone said Jurassic Park or Jurassic World is a male-centered movie, do you think people would object to you saying that?
I'd
I
object to
think
that.
people would. I would
Jurassic
too.
Park or Jurassic World?
Either one.
Well, was Jurassic World the one with Chris Pratt?
Yes.
Fuck, that movie sucked. I don't know.
Yeah,
It
I
was
really
really
think
bad.
male-centered movies would be. I don't know if I'm getting it wrong. The Bechdel test. There's like some sort of test that you can do to a movie to see if like women have independent lines and like if the women talk to each other and stuff. I'd say that I don't know.
Lord of the Rings
movies-
passes then.
bad.
Two women talk to each other
bit
for 4
like
seconds.
Yeah. Hey, it's true.
Like some movies just like I don't know if it's like a movie that just portrays women as like boobies.
Do those
And talks a
exist
lot about
in the modern day?
booby-centered films.
I don't know how we got off on this.
Yeah.
Wait, what was the point? What were we centered around for this?
That if there is some gender consideration taken into like the audience, like the audience you're trying to capture with a particular piece
Oh.
of media in the modern day, is it more likely to be male-centered or female-centered? And I said
Gotcha.
all else equal female-centered. Not that I think that most media is.
Sure.
Takes gender
I mean, like
considerations
that
into
might
account.
be true. Although I would say the majority of films are probably like not bisexual. What would you say? What's the other word for both? For appeals to both genders.
Unisex.
Co-ed.
Unisex.
co-ed, unisex.
Omnisex.
Yeah, like it's rated E for everyone.
Well, that's not exactly what I'm saying. Like, it would appeal to men and women. But like, I would say that if there were more
I
like
agree.
female-centric movies, it's probably because in the past, I mean, there have been more like male-centric movies, right?
Like we're doing a correction.
A little bit, maybe, yeah.
Star
Yeah, I agree.
Wars. Fuck Star Wars.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I agree 100% as long as we are. But it is the case that if it that is the reality. That's all I was saying. Because I think someone asked. I think you might have asked a version of that question. I was just saying, yeah, like today, I would say media is more geared towards women, which is fine. I don't really give a fuck about that type of stuff. And like, I don't have a strong opinion on that. I think it's not a big deal. And I also hate when conservatives.
I think
bitch
media
about shit
today
like
is
that.
more inclusive. I wouldn't say it's more geared towards women.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I still think it's pretty neutral. and-
I think those mean this. I think those mean the same thing from a relativistic standpoint, but I think
They
I'd
don't.
probably
Well, I would be very
agree with
careful
it.
because you're using language again in a way when you say like, well, things are more inclusive. That means that they're biased towards women. Doesn't that kind of like? Isn't
No,
that
but I'm
kinda-
saying like that's kind of like just that's kind of like how it has to be for it to be more inclusive because of the imbalance. If you get what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like if it's the case that movies aren't being kind of created with women in mind, like to make things more inclusive, you will have to make movies with women in mind.
I don't know
you know,
that
more
it's geared
frequently.
towards women though, just because of that. Like, for a long time we didn't like have a good amount of like racial representation in films and movies. But
Yeah,
if there's like a black person in a TV show, I wouldn't say that it's geared towards black people.
No, I
just say
I
it's
agree, but
inclusive.
I would say
it's
that
geared
like
towards everyone now.
no, I 100% agree, but I would say like Black Panther's like creation, like I think that's like an instance of like a character being created to fill what was a gap that previously existed. So it's not that now like or upon Black Panther's creation, Marvel Comics is like you could say like that is geared towards like I guess like minority or black people or whatever, but it's not that that's like a. Like,
Would you say
have to
now
be
that
more
Marvel is
inclusive.
geared more towards black people?
Marvel? No,
And then I don't understand
saying-
your
I was-
point at all.
no. My point is that if there's an imbalance, you will have to tip the scales. So like in the period of scale tipping back to equilibrium, you will have to shine light on what was previously neglected. Like, that's
Okay,
not
so
a bad
then
thing. I think
what
that's
about
just-
the
we're just-
Avengers?
We're saying the same thing. I feel like.
Is the Avengers then more geared towards black people?
Hold on, wait. Do you think that me and you were disagreeing? I feel like me and you were saying the same thing. I was just clarifying my position. Was
Well, I'm trying to figure out your use of the word. Do you think that the Avengers is geared more towards black people now?
Avengers geared more towards black people. Than what?
Then I guess before they had.
I think if an Avengers movie was created in 1950, an Avengers movie was created today would be more geared towards black people in a relativistic sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, you're using a slightly different phrase there, Moon. When you say geared more towards, it's different than saying like geared towards. I
It's
think,
geared
right?
for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Avengers is like a black movie. No.
Okay. So I guess. Okay, so summarizing, or I guess where we're at towards the end of this, what is in your mind? What do you think needs to change? It seemed like you have an issue, or you had an issue with my framing. Or you have an issue with my framing in terms of
Yes.
like the issue where like why I think the value proposition for dating a man is kind of rough today in society. I guess what do you think needs to change the most, or would you like to see done differently? I guess.
I mean, I think there's just a lot of it's like I said, my prescriptions in this sort of realm are pretty boring. I think there's a lot of work needs to be done, kind of on both sides.
Yeah, but give me
regarding-
specifics. Like what do you mean specifically? Like,
I think that there needs to be more. Kind of go back to something I said earlier. I think there needs to be more space for men's kind of like natural inclinations. I think that there is an idea that's perpetuated by you and a lot of people on my side of the political aisle, unfortunately, that paints a lot of what I believe to be tendencies and that men kind of like naturally exhibit as kind of like diseases that need to be cured. I think that is
well, so I guess
I think that-
without so. Okay, so let's do this part by part. First of all, what do you think I do with regards to, for me specifically, like how do you think I communicate that? I'm curious.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, I gotta wait. So sorry, I'm sorry. Repeat that question. My bad.
How do you think I communicate that there are some aspects of man that you think I'm saying are like bad and need to be cured, that you think is a little bit
Okay,
too,
so
yeah.
because I mean, I have a pretty like I have a good understanding of kind of like your like kind of like overall sort of like worldview. So I don't ascribe the message that you kind of like perpetuate, in my opinion, to like what I would believe to be like your actual opinions. I think that most people, and especially people who need to hear it, listening to the way that you describe kind of like a lot of this stuff, would walk away feeling like it's really just kind of like a men bad sort of thing from your perspective. I think like I said, I don't believe that to be the case for you, but I think that it does sound like that sometimes. And I think the people who would need to hear that to kind of be pulled out of the fucking abyss of like, I guess like fresh and fucking fit or something, I think they would definitely get that impression. But I think that, the reasonable people would hear you and like be like, okay, this is like a rational,
So wait,
like,
real quick on that. So like, I think I can kind of agree with you there. This is going to sound like I'm actually doing this even more though. But like my answer to that would be that, of course, men feel that way. Men don't want to hear any self-improvement advice right now socially that doesn't play into the pornographic male power fantasy. Right now, it feels like for the men that need the advice the most, the only advice they're amenable to is advice that builds them up in the most like hyper masculinized way possible. Otherwise, it's like cucked out and they don't want to hear it. And I feel like I see that in all of the male training spaces. And this was like for the earlier question of like I invited you or Mr. Wooten asked like, can you give me an example where this isn't the case? Like, what are these male training spaces that don't just do the male power fantasy and that's the only thing that they can apparently appeal to men on?
Yeah, I think that kind of like runs in accordance with like basically my answer to that, which is that I think those really only exist in the form that they do because the demand is from like, the type of like man who unfortunately kind of has like the afflictions that we've described regarding, like their desire kind of like subjugation of women and kind of like passing the buck, so to speak, when it comes to like their own personal inadequacies. But I guess I would just say that at the end of the day, like people don't exist as kind of like social abstracts or social abstractions. So if it is the case that somebody has, extensive experience anecdotally with, issues regarding kind of like I guess like like intergender dynamics, and but then they hear you kind of like say things that make it sound as though you are placing, an inordinate amount of the blame on them, due to things that are not reflected in their day-to-day lives. Like that's where I think it can get a lot trickier. And I
Can
do
you
think
ground
that
this out?
generally
Can you
speaking,
ground this out like in an example, just so I can kind of understand better what you're saying?
yeah. Well, when I say like I guess an example, my example is not going to be specific. My example will be just of things that you said, but not of you presenting a specific example. But I guess it would be like kind of the case of if someone were to listen to you speak about this topic and like tally, okay, like he said, okay, so men are bad here, men aren't good at this, women are really good at this, women are really good at that, okay, men are really bad at that, men are really bad at that, women are really good at this and that and that. And it's like, so at the end of the board, you're like, okay, so how many positives and negatives on each side? It'll be like maybe 1 positive for men and like 30 negatives, and conversely, maybe 30 positives for women and like 1 negative. Like that's the message that I think can be conveyed sometimes. And I think just generally speaking, like the messaging should be more. I think
Like I kind of understand. Like I guess in a way I kind of agree with you. But like my audience is like all men. Like what am I gonna say for women? Like I've got like 5 to 10% of my audience is women. Like
but
if you listen to like
it's not about prescribing advice for the gender that you're speaking to. It's about describing particular situations, kind of like in an accurate manner, particular like societal afflictions, like to their fullest extent, not necessarily presenting somebody with like actionable advice to like change and like counter that. Like it's
well, I think I can
more
give
like just,
actionable advice, but like all of it is like really boring and not fun. I guess
no,
not.
I
Like,
agree with that, but I'm saying when you say like, I don't think your audience being men or your audience being 99% men or 99% women, it wouldn't matter when it comes to the ways in which you kind of like speak on.
well, I think it super
male
matters,
versus female,
right?
like deficiencies and strengths. No, because I think because I would say, like I said before, like I think there's things that you describe as when you talk about like men's like emotionality and like lack of emotional availability and stuff. I think that you paint that far too negatively. And on the flip side, when you talk about, I think sometimes you might even overstate the level of like emotional development that women generally have. I would say if you are to meet somebody who is particularly advanced emotionally, odds are they're probably going to be a woman. But I would also say that there are a lot of kind of like sort of like interpersonal and interactive issues with regards to emotions that are also displayed by women that don't really get shown much attention.
Sure,
And
there
I
might
think the
be
issue
some.
with
I
that
try.
is that
I don't
when they
necessarily.
happen-
Wait, real quick. I don't necessarily disagree that there might be some things that women fuck up on, or whatever. That, like sure, but let's speak. Like we're speaking broadly. There's going to be like trends,
Yes.
and broadly, the trend is going to be
I think
that.
there are positive and negative trends across both genders when regards to
No,
with
that's a
regards to
worthless
emotional-
statement. There's positive and negative aspects to chopping your arm off. You need less calories to survive, right? But this is a worthless.
Yes, but if you
right?
were to ask someone, hey, what are the positive and negatives of chopping your arm off? I would hope that you would give what you believe to be the positives and negatives, and not just the negatives on one side, and maybe just the positives for cutting your fucking like dick off. Or
No, I'm
something.
probably only going to talk about the negatives to that. I don't know if I'm going to.
You don't want to talk about the positives for cutting your arm off, Steve.
No, not advocating for cutting their arms off, but if someone were to say, hey, what are the positive and negatives of this? And you're like, oh, well, there actually are no positive and only negatives.
Well,
I
if
chopping
I
your
got
arm off is a bad
specifically,
example, because
if I was specifically asked, I might. But like, I think in general, I'm probably just going to focus on the negatives of this, right? I think in
But when
general,
you say if I'm specifically asked, I think if it's the case that there's an argument going on like that has like these like intergender, like this these like gender relation undertones, like it is the case that you're like the implicit assumption there is that you're going to present things in like. And I'm not gonna say, first of all, you might present things exactly as you see them. So I'm not even necessarily saying that I'm not like accusing you of being disingenuous or bad faith or whatever. I'm just saying that there are certain things that I believe that you either don't speak to or overstate. I think you overstate the gap in emotional intelligence among men and women. I think that's
well, what is
that's my
the
personal opinion.
if that gap isn't like a big explainer for, I guess, the differences in happiness in terms of pursuing relationships, or whatever? What do you think is the gap, or what do you?
I think whatever. I'll answer that directly, but first I'll say whatever the gap is. I think I would implore you to ask both men and women who kind of like are. I don't like that should be sort of like something you deduce from like I guess like a survey of hey ask 50 men 50 women what was the issue that presented itself most presently in your relationship. Whereas I think that if you surveyed a bunch of women, they might say that. If you surveyed a bunch of men, they might just say something different. Some might agree, some might not.
Yeah,
agree,
but if men are the ones that are super unhappy with the current state of affairs, then it's probably the women's opinion that's pretty important here. Like, what are you missing, or what do you feel like you're not getting that you want in a relationship, right? Isn't that the one who we should probably be asking?
Oh, I think you should ask both, and I think it would be interesting to kind of see what both of them are saying. I think like I said, there are instances where this is obviously the case, but I think there are instances where a woman might say that that's the case, and what actually took place might be something completely different. It might be the case that she's emotionally deficient. And I'm not saying that like, oh, this is an exceptional case. I think that happens a lot. I think that's very
Well, okay,
common.
you're using words like it happens, it's a lot, it's whatever. Like on the aggregate, do you think that men are having more emotional issues or women are having more emotional issues? Who do you think on average is more emotionally intelligent? Or do you think it's a wash at the end of the day? It's more or less the same on both sides.
I think the way that we gauge emotional intelligence would make that answer would have to be women, obviously. I think emotional intelligence is not defined correctly, to be honest. I think it's defined in a way that like necessitates that women will always be superior in regards to emotional intelligence.
Can you elaborate, I guess? A little bit more? What do you mean when you say that?
I think that emotional intelligence goes beyond just kind of like being able to like convey your like it, not that it's exclusive, that doesn't include, it's inclusive of, but beyond just being able to convey your feelings in like a in sort of like an intimate manner with like, you know, close friends and family. I think that is obviously a key component, and it's indicative of emotional intelligence. But I think there are like beyond that, it could just be like being able to handle like stressful situations, being able to like kind of like learn from like take losses and learn from them, like in any kind of like vector of life. I think.
Do you think for any of these things, for either of these things, do you think that women in general are less able to handle stressful situations, or do you think that women in general are less able to learn lessons from failures in life?
Well, I guess when I am, well, stressful situations is broad. I guess I would say there are some stressful situations that I would say men are definitely better at. And
stop. What you keep saying? You keep saying things like some. I'm just saying on the aggregate.
Yeah, because on the aggregate, like that is on the aggregate, I would say stressful situation. It's probably fairly even, is what I would say.
Okay. Can you give me an example? Because I'm going to think of one stressful situation that I would say that women. I would say. Maybe I'm loading this, but I would say arguably one of the most stressful situations is one that women basically exclusively deal with, which is being a single mom. I think it's incredibly rare that you have single dads who are forced to take care of a kid and have no assistance whatsoever from the mother. But so I would say that like that's an incredibly stressful situation that is insanely one-sided. What do you think? What's an example of an incredibly stressful situation that only a man deals with, or could deal with, or men generally deal with better than women?
Home invader.
Okay, something that doesn't involve physical combat that less than 2% of men are ever going to see in their entire lives in a first world country. Also, hold on, wait. Do you think that a home invasion is not in general stressful for men to deal with?
No, I'm saying women. No, wait, hold on. What? No, I'm saying that I think I would trust a man in that situation, like maybe like saving a fucking like cat from a burning building. I would probably say like similarly that men would probably on average exhibit higher levels of emotional composure and sort of like capacity in those regards. But that kind of plays into the physical thing. So I guess another example I would give is like maybe like, you know, like dealing with like an authority figure, like scolding you, like condemning you, like yelling at you. I think I would probably, and this is not I would generally assume men to be more receptive to that rather than kind of like interpret it as a personal attack. Not that, and like this is just me saying like probabilistically, likelihood wise, not saying that this is an absolute rule that women obviously can't do that. They clearly do all the time. I'm just saying like I would say a man probably less likely to take it personally and understand why it's happening.
Isn't this at ends kind of with the, I'm going to cite like the red pill ideology, but isn't this at ends with the idea that like men are more naturally born leaders than women are, and that men are more better designed to lead than to take orders? You're saying that men in general can be...
I think that shit's retarded. Stupid, sorry.
Stupid. Sure. I don't care if you're retarded. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if... I don't even know what I could point to for like evidence. Like intuitively, I don't feel like it is the case that men take instruction.
Do you
better.
feel like?
Yeah.
Do you feel like if you had a subordinate who fucked up real bad, cost you a lot of money or something, and let's just say your communication style was a bit more drill sergeant-y, just naturally speaking, do you feel like you would have to tone it down if you were speaking to a woman versus a man, or would you address them the exact same way? Who do you think would take it better if you were to address them in that manner?
There's probably some like built-in fucking there's a name for this, like nice misogyny or whatever. I'd probably be gentler with a woman, I guess, because I think I would just gravitate towards that. But I feel like both would take it pretty poorly. I feel like nobody likes to be corrected. I think that when you look at like from the corporate world, if you look at like a performance improvement plan, like when you PIP an employee, you're basically firing these people like 95% of the time, regardless of if it's male or female.
Okay. But okay,
that's.
I mean, you still would say it's like roughly even there. So I think that's kind of that, and then the other example I gave, I think, with like the saving like a fucking cat from a burning tree, or like dealing with like a home invader, maybe somebody like tries to rob you. I think these are all situations where, from a probabilistic standpoint, if someone were to tell me someone stuck you up, and one person is able to kind of like comply to the extent necessary to survive, and then another person's like likely to like start like crying and freaking out. If you're asking me like which gender is more likely to do one or the other, I would say the man was probably more likely to diffuse, de-escalate, and comply to the extent possible. Not that a woman wouldn't do that, but if you were to ask me who's more likely to do that, I would assume a man. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Do we have any drill sergeants in chat?
Just to be clear, I don't know if I would necessarily disagree with that, but I would also say that framing is, again, part of the problem with this conversation, is that, like, you're talking about an exceptional scenario that also coincidentally plays into male power fantasies, but also like most people are not going to ever like deal with this. And the idea that you'd be willing to take somebody who for the entirety of their life is emotionally underdeveloped just on the off chance that they could be a personal bodyguard, I think is not, I would say that's not a good value proposition.
Yeah, but would you not say that the capacity to do so doesn't lend it, you believe that can't possibly lend itself to other vectors of one's existence?
Not necessarily. I mean, I guess it depends on why you think you'd be good at fighting them off. Like if it's because you're the kind of person who gets in a lot of fights, then I would say you're probably negatively predicted for relationships. But if it's because you're a person who's like generally calm and cool regardless, then that'd probably be a positive predictor. But
so I think that
I can think of a case actually. I mean, this is about general trends, right? So everyone is a bit different from one another, but I mean, there is a case that females on average don't speak up for themselves enough, and this leads to them being, I mean, it's part of the suppression problem that we can have. And it also, I would say, I'm trying not to shout and be considerate, but it's also something for us as men that we need to then be supportive of our partners, assuming we're heterosexual, to kind of give them that confidence and to try and fulfill that role in the other direction rather than, our partner being our therapist. That's in the other direction. I feel like we have a role often to play of getting our partner to be a bit more confident in themselves, to believe in themselves, because I do think that there's sometimes, I don't want to call it emotional weakness, because it's often because they're trying to be considerate of other people, of not talking back to, giving the example of an employee apparently making a mistake and something breaking. Maybe actually it wasn't even...
I think it's okay to refer to this as a form of like emotional weakness. I think it's an okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. And they may not.
Yeah, people pleasing.
Yeah, exactly. And that can obviously be a negative thing sometimes, especially if they don't think about themselves, or maybe sometimes an overthinking of the situation emotionally. And yeah, I mean, I think that can happen. So I mean, to be fair to both sides in this, so I think you can see that. But
I actually wanted to quickly build off of what you just said. I think that, and it kind of speaks more to, which is why I kind of push back against the, on average, emotional, like who has more the capacity for like superior or a higher level of emotional intelligence. Like emotional intelligence, I think it's also not exerting, like that's the thing I mentioned before, like the manipulation thing and like capacity to manipulate due to superior emotional intelligence. I think you also have to look at capacity to manipulate but not doing it. I think that also it plays into emotional intelligence. And I know I personally dealt with situations like when it comes to like the people pleasing thing. This is not an exclusively female thing, but like with women in my life who have kind of like a tendency to people please, like to their detriment in some instances. It could be the case in a lot of cases. There are other women who identify that, and because they identify that, and they like kind of like seek it out, sort of like the way a lion goes after like the baby fucking like the baby wildebeest, because they can identify that behavior in another woman and then use that to kind of like abuse them in a lot of cases. I think that happens too, and I think we would also have to kind of like dissect.
Yeah, I think
which gender do we think is more likely to do something like that in the event that there's a people pleaser, and that also plays into emotional intelligence.
I think that can happen, but I think we're getting into like more niche examples here, right? Like I would say in general, I'm curious, why do you think it is the case that that like we talk a lot about like the male loneliness epidemic, but we don't talk. It doesn't seem like we're talking much about like a female loneliness epidemic. Why do you think that's so one-sided?
I think that fucking red pillers are just stupid as fuck, and I think they just I think a lot of dejected men just cry a lot about shit. But I don't think that it's because they're being uniquely afflicted. I think it's because their afflictions are not addressed in the same way, so they feel so it's just there's just less kind of like societal buffers and contingencies to deal with these sorts of things that kind of exacerbate the issue for men, but not to say that it doesn't exist for women. I think it exists in a similar way, just with more contingencies to alleviate the feelings and the tendencies that arise from that affliction.
So you would say that it's
At
just
this
a
point.
fiction, that it's not, there is no real male loneliness epidemic. It's just a bunch of crybabies. It's kind of what it.
No, I male loneliness epidemic, I think, assumes that it is like uniquely male and uniquely. It's just like I think there's just things. Like I think that if you look like at society, I think when a man and a woman, like let's say they both are like really depressed, I think for a lot of like nature and nurture reasons, like a woman is just more likely to kind of like address that in a healthy way. But when you say like when you talk about like the male loneliness like an epidemic, it sounds like your question is kind of like saying, oh, well, it's because men are having this problem and women aren't. I'm saying, no, I think both are having the problem. I think that there's just like certain things that cause men to deal with their problems a lot worse.
Okay,
So then
and-
that
Like, wait, like what?
manifests in this.
Yeah. Because I feel like this is going back to the thing I was saying. Like, I do agree, but it feels like that dealing with your problems a lot worse is part of the emotional training stuff that I was talking about.
Yeah, but when we talk about like emotional training, I think the other side of emotional training is, I guess like emotional like support. So while you talk about like, oh, like men get more like, or men get less emotional training, but I also think to the same effect, like men get less emotional support.
Yeah, but
So
that
if
emotional
I'm-
support, remember earlier when I asked, like, when would a man be vulnerable? And you're like, well, once they're ready to kill themselves. Like, wouldn't that be part of the emotional support paradigm?
No, I think that's far too. I think that is kind of like missing the forest for the trees. I think the emotional support paradigm is like your question, right? Why do we hear about like a male loneliness like, epidemic? I think it's because men's issues are not. I think society does not have the prerequisite kind of like tools to deal with issues that men face in this vein to the same degree that it has for women. Because
Wait, so real
for
quick,
women, like
I agree with you, okay? But so my take on this, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, okay? I imagine you'll disagree, but that's okay. So my take on this, I do agree that society is not built right now to deal with male issues. But the reason why is because all of man's issues in the past have been related to how do you become a better man for the sake of being a better man. And the better the man you are, the more attractive you are to women. But now, because women have a lot more agency than they've had in the past, for the first time ever, men are having to ask the question of how do I become a better partner? Which historically, being a better partner has always just been a byproduct of the male power fantasy. The stronger I am, the more money I make, the taller I am, the more I can fight off criminals, the more I can do all these awesome manly things. Relationships are going to come to be naturally as a byproduct of those awesome things. Whereas women have had to, answer the question of like, how do I become a better partner for my husband? And a lot of those things aren't things that are good for the woman on her own. They're things that are just good for getting men. But now for the first time, I think men have been tasked with the question of like, how do I be a better partner? And they don't want to hear the answers to that because the answers aren't playing into the male power fantasy of like what makes me the coolest version, the most masculine, best version of myself.
I think that's fair. I guess I would just ask, do you think that because of that sort of like historical, because of that historical context, do you think it's the case that there is not work to be done on the female side in regards to being better partners for men in the modern day?
There can be, but there are realistic questions that we can ask of people, and there are unrealistic questions I think that you can ask of people. And because I feel like, and I guess it's my own bias or whatever, but I feel like the majority of the work right now probably has to come on the male side because men are the ones that they're the ones that are issuing all the complaints about not being able to get partners and everything, right? It's not women that are issuing those complaints, it's men. So it seems to logically follow that men are probably the ones that need to do most of the work right now. So that's one aspect of it. And then The second aspect of it is like, it feels like for men, like the ask is like, you need to become more emotionally aware of what's going on around you. But for women, the ask is basically like, you just need to become more accommodating, right? Like the advice given to men is never, maybe you should just settle for a fat chick. Whereas the advice to women is, maybe you should settle for like a schizoid dude who only knows how to play League of Legends and recite every battle in World War II. But like maybe that guy's actually secretly really cool and you just need to give him a chance, right? So it seems like the advice, at least from the masculine perspective, from the male perspective, is like, you need to learn how to settle better. But the advice from the male perspective is non-existent, I guess. Yeah, that is what it feels like.
Yeah, I think that's probably true for the most part, that the female advice, a lot of female advice is like to compromise, whereas
I got a
male
question.
advice, yeah.
It's a good one.
Do you also think that the nature-nurture discussion about the balance, do you think that's even all that important?
Are you asking me? Okay.
I think it's important in like pretty kind of like in like very narrow sort of scenarios. Generally speaking, I think well, like important in what sense though? Like relevant?
Well, yeah, in terms of, kind of self-betterment and trying to be better partners, being better independently for ourselves emotionally, which is also a huge part of being a better partner, right? Even if men aren't intrinsically good at it and it's something biological, surely, okay, that's nice to know, but we still can work on it and improve upon our weaknesses, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I think this kind of goes back to one of my other answers, where it really depends on how you like define good, and like kind of like a recurring theme where I'm saying like I feel like the way we are defining these things sort of like necessitates that men will be behind the 8 ball.
But it seems like they are. Isn't that kind of like a descriptive reality? Like it seems like in terms of dating and being fit for relationships, it seems like right now, at least in the West, it seems like men are falling behind. No? Isn't that kind of the whole point? Like the education gap, the income gap, the happiness gap in being single, the ability to procure a relationship, like the complaints about online dating with apps and everything. Like aren't men kind of behind?
No, yeah, I agree with those facts. When we talk about like men being behind though, like it's not. I guess it's not necessarily like. Yes, I do agree that if you were to like pluck a pool of successful people like today, like it would disproportionately be like you'll pluck a woman out of that pool before you pluck a man. Women are like young women are just more successful by most kind of like performance metrics, I guess you could say. But it's what I'm talking about is more to when we talk about those issues, we kind of frame it like that is due to a deficiency inherent within men, or maybe not even inherent, but that exists within men writ large, rather than saying the way that we kind of like think about a lot of this stuff might just not necessarily like be a way that fits like a lot of dudes, which is why I think a lot of dudes like end up like falling into like listening to these fucking morons, because it's like they feel like what's like speaking to them, like not speaking like about them, what's speaking to them, what resonates with them. And I think you have to find what resonates with people to compel them to change. And so if you're saying kind of like a lot of stuff like, oh, you need to do like a lot of this more like opening up type shit, it's like, yeah, that certainly will help, but will it help more than kind of, I don't know, like other things? Like I guess we'd have to kind of like, we could talk about like what some of those other things are, but
with men having this problem, Steve, why are we not having more women also then having the reverse of this problem of being unable to find quote unquote more high quality men? There's only so many high quality men to go around in our example here, and we're saying that high quality women will more likely go after high quality men. So men are having an issue. Why aren't we hearing women as much talk about it?
I think you do hear women complain a lot about not finding good men to date, but I think the issue is that women are more comfortable not being in a relationship than men are.
The
last I checked, it was like 36 to 24%. So it wasn't the biggest gap. Well, that's pretty big. But it was like a woman is like can be single and be like, okay. But like men who are single are like, I failed my singular purpose in life and I need to commit suicide immediately, right?
Okay, yeah.
One thing that when I read like my Kiwi Forums thread, for instance, sometimes when people are attacking people, it's obvious that the way that they're attacking them is what they're saying is like, I have a view of how the world works and I'm going to attack anybody who's living outside that view because with the way that I'm viewing things, it has to be true. It has to be the case that you're miserable. Otherwise, I have to kill myself. So one way that I think this plays out in the real world is men that like a lot of like red pillars, all these people will make fun of of women who say things like, oh, like I'm happily single, or like I don't necessarily need a man. And you see all this content where it's like, you're going to be miserable when you get older, that you don't have a family, you're freezing your eggs, and that's cringe, and you're going to hate yourself and all that. And the reason why men say that is because men hate themselves right now. So they have to think that women are going to be miserable too, right? But it seems to be the case, and you can ask any woman, and some women are autistically fucking retarded about this, but like you can ask any woman, she can go to any app anytime she wants and have like fucking
get 100
400
million
views.
likes.
Yeah, but they don't, right? So there must be a reason why. They must be at least a little bit more comfortable not having, you know, those people in their lives, right? And then, but I think it's because women are generally a little bit happier on their own, or can be happier on their own than men are, because their friendships are more fulfilling. Yeah, they're getting more dimensionality filled than men do in their friendships.
Yeah, and I think you've spoken to this before, which like, I really agreed with, which is, it's not like when it comes to like these like fucking weirdos that like say all this shit, like whenever they basically see a woman, you know, like signaling like, hey, like I'm, you know, I don't need a fucking relationship to like feel fulfilled. And then you see like a lot of these dudes like that are just like, you know, just like fucking like just literally fucking fuming. It kind of happens. Same thing happens with like weightlifting content. If you're like a weightlifting woman's like in like Instagram comments, they're fucking weird. But I think like it speaks to like this when I talk about like society kind of having the buffers in place to kind of deal with, you know, X, Y, or Z. I think like as society, like we've made a lot of progress in teaching women how to kind of like succeed independently, if you know what I mean. Whereas like, so it's like if it is the case that there's a woman and a man that both want relationships but can't find a suitable partner, the woman will have more things kind of stopping her free fall than like a dude would. That would be my assumption.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think a lot of this has been like women created. But then this goes back to my complaint before when I was asking, like, can you give me an example of positive content for men that's not like the crazy red pill shit? Because I feel like men don't. It's funny because the rumor is that women don't give good dating advice to men, which for a variety of reasons. So I think sometimes that's true. I think because we both kind of speak. I don't want to do like men are from Mars, women are from Venus shit, but we kind of speak different languages. So sometimes oftentimes women will say fucking retarded shit when they're talking to men about what you need to do to date well or whatever. But like men give even worse advice to men when it comes to picking up a woman. So I just don't know where these, like, for all the advancements that women have made, for all the feminism movements, all the different waves and all this stuff, it's because women have spent like a lot of time and a lot of intentional effort building these spaces that I think men have just kind of taken for granted. And now that men kind of need some help here, we're almost like begging the personal women in our lives to do the work for us, because it seems like men are literally incapable of building these spaces on their own.
But I think the male advice is really like, it's easy.
What's easy?
But people aren't going to do it. Like the advice to like go get a girl, you actually have to go out there into the real world. You can't just sit online in fucking chat rooms 24/7 a day. You have to go out there, you have to do your hobbies, and you have to like not fucking be a pussy hound and like look for it. You have to like enjoy yourself and enjoy your life in order to like that's what makes you attractive. Is if you're enjoying yourself, other people are going to want to be around you way more than if you're just like out there looking for a fucking girl like nonstop, going to bars.
Yeah, I mean, like that might be the case. Yeah, that there are, but like nobody wants to hear that. Is what I'm saying. That's why there aren't.
Yeah,
like,
which 100%.
Yeah.
And part of
because it's hard.
Part of enjoying yourself is just being happy, being independent on your own, right? And so, I mean, this is the thing I think Destiny was saying before. You know, women find it easier on average to be single. And so you learn to be single is the best way to prepare for a relationship. And part of that is having a decent ability to have an emotional connection with your other friends. And among males, it's more likely to be male friends. But even with other female friends, right? And having at least some friendship in which you can be open and honest with somebody else. That's also something that you see that's missing. And then it's the assumption that in the relationship, you can just use your partner as a counselor. And it's just... it's just too much pressure on your partner then, and it ruins your relationship if you even get into one.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that learning to be single also is very helpful in kind of even determining if you would like a relationship. I think a lot of people it would benefit them to definitely like kind of stew with that when they're kind of like feeling this way, because relationships really aren't for everybody. But I guess
I think a lot of guys don't.
I think relationships are also kind of rare. I think everybody wants to have a partner that they love and can share and spend their life with. And I think those are pretty normal. I think if humans are built for anything, it's probably relationships, no?
I agree with you, but I think a lot of guys honestly just want to like have someone to like have sex with every once in a while and like hang out with. They don't want all of the other stuff that comes with a relationship.
I mean, maybe
You disagree?
I think that definitely is the case for a lot of women. I think a lot of women like will openly tell you that, like will literally say that in those exact terms.
I kind of disagree because I think like a really good example of this, if you go to the incel community, any guy can have sex at any point in time if he really wants to, in most parts of the world, by paying a prostitute. But if you tell an incel like, hey, why not just go like pay a chick for fucking sex or whatever? Well, even though they're called incel and involuntary celibate, the focus isn't really on sex. It's the idea that like, I mean, for a man,
They're wanted.
yeah, as much as a man, might be sexist or hate a woman, at the end of the day, the man's ultimate validation is from a woman. And if a woman doesn't want to have sex with you or be in a relationship with you or do kind, loving, and caring things, unless you're paying her, then it's like you feel like you failed your principal part of being a man.
Yeah,
there's a
I
bit
hear
of
you. I don't think it,
conflation.
I wasn't just meaning like they want penis vagina to come, blah, blah, blah. I think there's a lot more with that, but I don't think they want like the emotional quote unquote baggage that comes with like actually having a relationship, having to give a fuck about another person, etc. They just kind of want like the easy part of it.
Oh, sure, maybe. Or they're not used to doing the work to maintain a relationship.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think there's a bit of conflation happening there. I think so. This kind of like goes back to what I was saying before about how I think there are like kind of like society is kind of structured in a way that sort of like feeds into this sort of thinking. Would you not agree that like when you say like talk about like an incel, right? Like why don't they just like pay a fucking prostitute? It's like the same way we talk about like societal conditioning. I'm sure most people can attest to the fact that most men are conditioned not by like women, just by society generally, like that paying prostitutes is like bad. Not that everybody adheres to that, but that definitely is. I feel like generally like, oh, if you need to go pay for sex, like that is they're conditioned to believe that is a deficiency. Like you like why pay for sex when you can just fucking like you can't get bitches? Like that's like the mentality. And then on the flip side,
Wait, real quick. What you're saying was true, but you said it correctly the second time, but I would say not the first time. It's not that prostitution is bad. It's that if you need to go to prostitution, then it's pathetic, right? I would agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, but on the flip side, I think there is like that. I think is probably that's the more male perpetuated like negative, positive. That's how I think what discourages men from men. I think from the women's side, it would be women are not like it's like a fucking like like hot button issue, but I think most women would say like they would prefer a guy who doesn't pay for prostitutes. So it's like that. So it's not just that they want the validation that comes with having a partner. It's that they also probably feel like there's a lot of fucking bad shit that could happen in regards to like their future prospects or regards to like their self-perception or perceivable perception of them if they were to pay for prostitutes. So that's something that's discouraged.
No, I don't think because you
society.
could just secretly do it. It's not like anybody's gonna know. There's not like a secret. There's not like a
some do.
database. Yeah, but even if you do, that's not a replacement for feeling like you're in a real loving, caring relationship.
But you don't think that the way that prostitution is, I mean, I agree it's not a replacement, but I'm saying in terms
of how it's marketed, that's why. No, I think that the reason why is because
if it could ever be a substitute, if like let's say there was a 1% chance of it ever being a substitute, that percent chance is essentially stamped out by the way that everyone talks about prostitution in a variety of ways and why it shouldn't be a substitute.
No, it's just not, because definitionally, if you have to pay somebody to be your friend, you're never going to feel like that you've defeated the whole purpose of, in a way, of like being in a relationship, right? Is you had to pay somebody to get there. So it's never going to be the same thing as somebody, loving you for who you are. It's because you're willing to pay for it.
I assume a lot of people would delude themselves though that they're just paying now and the person's gonna like fall in love with them, etc. later on. But yeah,
sure. I mean, you could fall into that trap, but then I don't think it changes what I'm
and you're
saying.
fucked. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't change what you're saying. I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying it's like a substitute in the sense that if I can't, like when we talk about, because like remember, like you brought this up to say like why don't incels just pay for sex?
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a way. There does exist a world where prostitution is not talked about in the way it is talked about in this world, where that is what most incels would do.
No,
they
100 million. No, a million billion.
Still be unfulfilled. They might still be unfulfilled, but they would opt to do that as a sort of stopgap, or
I super disagree. It's not. I don't think it's a stopgap at all. The incel's issue is that he feels like he has no love or validation or anything from women at all, and to have to pay for sex, I think if anything, it's always going to reinforce that idea that you're not worthy of a woman's
now they've
love.
lost. Yeah.
But that's if you frame it that, okay, let's just say the incel was like, okay, well, I'm a fucking like 35-year-old virgin, dog shit at sex. Okay, you can just practice sex by fucking prostitutes, but he's never going to do that because of the way that prostitution is framed. Like, that's
do you think the incel is an incel
like,
because he isn't capable of performing well in the bedroom?
I think an incel would certainly be insecure about that if they're getting into like their late 20s, early 30s and have never had sex. Absolutely.
Aren't incels people who feel like women are keeping like fucking sex from them and like shit? It's not like they're performing
no,
poorly
that
in a
is-
bedroom.
Red pill incels, yes. But we're talking about, I think we're talking about like just incels, like generally at this point.
I don't think that the main problem with the incels are like, oh no, I'm not going to be good at sex. I think
I think that's not the main problem. That is a problem. That is something that among the smorgasbord of issues, one issue will be, oh wow, like I feel like I am behind the eight ball in regards to just like how I would even be capable. I think that feeds into kind of like anxiety and self-doubt. That kind of like, it's just like part of the puzzle that could be quelled with prostitution. Realistically, I mean, to some extent, I imagine.
I guess I could just
I
speak
don't
to it. I
agree.
guess maybe there might
Yeah.
be some people that think this way, but I think the main like if you're an
Just to
incel,
be clear,
if you're an incel, you've got
you guys are disagreeing with the.
Yeah.
You guys disagreeing with the idea that if you are someone who has a smorgasbord of insecurities, issues, anxieties, if one of them is I'm probably ass at sex because I'm X year old and I feel like I should have had sex like 20 fucking years ago. If you think that there's no way that having sex with a prostitute, like using prostitution as quote unquote practice to any whatever extent, and obviously this is a very crass way of describing it, but I'm just trying to be blunt as possible to get my message across. You don't think that could help at all in any capacity with any anxiety whatsoever? I'm not saying that would cure them of all their fucking ailments.
No.
Did we just get straw
I'm saying,
man?
wait, no. I'm saying that even if it would help them, even if it would help them, the help would just be being around a woman. That would be the help. It wouldn't be like the training in sex. I don't think the principal, I don't even think a big concern for an incel, like if I could list like 5 incel concerns, I don't think like sexual performance would even make the top 5.
Bro.
Cross their
Or
mind.
if it would make the top 5 list, then I would argue that they're probably proxying for another issue. So an incel, for instance, an incel might say something like, "Oh, I don't think I could ever."
I don't know what to do with the woman.
No. It would be, or maybe they might say that, but it'd be like, yeah, I don't think I could ever like please a woman in bed. But if you were to trace that thought more, the thought would be more like, I don't think I am handsome enough. I don't think my cock is big enough. I don't think that I am attractive enough or tall enough or whatever. It would be like, it would trace down to some characteristic like this, not like, I don't think I could maneuver their genitals well enough to get them off. I don't think, for 99% of like incels, I don't think that that's the concern now.
Well, it's not that. It's just like, just do they? I don't know. Like, I think the concern could be like, I just don't know what to do. Like, just generally, like, I've never been in a situation.
Yeah,
I
but do you
literally.
know-
it's like-
I think
it's like driving a car without practice.
I think we're in totally different worlds when it comes to incel
Maybe,
people.
okay,
Yeah.
fine. I'll drop that point. I won't.
Sure.
I'll drop that point. Fuck that. I'm right about everything else, though. I'm glad you agreed. Sorry, reason if you were going to say something after Destiny admitted that I was right.
No, I was going to completely support Destiny on this point. That I mean,
Oh, never mind.
there's-
Anyway,
there's other things going on here, right? Firstly, if you had decent friends, especially male friends, and you're having problems in the bedroom, and you'd talk about this. You should talk
this
Bang
on
the
the
homies.
realizing,
Yo, we
hey,
like
bro job.
everyone has
Locked in.
problems sometimes, right? And that's the way it plays out. And the other thing is, like, if you get into a habit of having sex, I mean, I don't say this from experience, but if you get into a habit of having sex with prostitutes, I don't think that's really teaching you the best of habits in a loving relationship. If anything, it's going to give you a lot of bad habits. And so it's not really setting somebody up for having a good, healthy relationship with a female.
What habits do you pick up from a prostitute? I'm curious.
Well, I imagine you're not going to pick up anything positive in terms of like pleasing the other person because this person is literally
Yeah,
being
exactly. The foreplay
paid.
side
Oh,
of
yeah,
things,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
reading people's emotions, and that's
Yeah,
the,
I agree with that.
the joy you get from knowing that the other person genuinely wants to be with you, and there's none of that. And that's
yeah, no,
also what,
okay. I want to be clear. What I'm saying is like that. If it is the case that you have literally no other outlet, I'm just talking about like that's something where it's like some familiarity with just like what is even taking place, like just some physical familiarity with the situation could help to some extent, like not to a large extent, to some extent. Not that it's ideal. Not that
Sure,
it's
I
optimal,
understand.
not that
Just
one
the
even
difference.
should do it.
The different area that we're coming from is that I just in my mind, being an incel has nothing to do with sex. That's what I think. I think a lot of people think that, but it really is not even a factor whatsoever. Sex stuff is not.
I don't know how you can say that. I'm sorry.
I know.
I feel like it's
maybe
mainly
you
about,
just
like,
naturally-
relationships.
You probably are a guy who naturally has a little bit of game or naturally has been around women more often or whatever. But for an incel, I think the main issue is they feel like they are never, ever, ever going to be the type of person to get any kind of validation. I'm loading that negatively, but I don't mean to. But they're never going to be validated by a woman. A woman will never like them or love them or cherish them or be in a relationship with
Agree.
them. Yeah, but it's not a sex thing at all. It's a relationship companionship thing.
It's not a sex thing, as in sex is not the integral component. But to say it's like thoughts of sex don't cross the mind of an incel when it comes to like their ability to be able to like maintain a relationship and like maintain like desirability of themselves by another person.
There's a fair point that they're going to project it onto what they see as their own inability to have sex or some other insecurity that they have. But
or like if they feel like I can't maintain a relationship, one of the pens in the pencil case might be, well, I'm fucking dog shit at sex, and all these other guys are way better at sex than me. I think that's all
they might think it, and of course it would be wrong for them to think that, and they would realize that if they had decent friends around them that they could talk to about stuff like that. So yeah, for sure, it might be a problem because they're thinking that, but that isn't actually the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that if they had like good friends that could like kind of like reason with them that one, like a woman is not going to be expecting you to be fucking Ron Jeremy, and two, there are plenty of women that also probably have a similar lack of experience that kind of would like to learn with you. I think these
well,
are
the real
things
thing is that if you're a guy who's worried about your sexual performance because of women you're dating, you're already out of the incel category. You're like this is like a stolen valor at this point. You're not an incel. This is something different.
So okay, I mean, so the three of you do believe that incels, like the thought of sex is not part of the calculus.
I don't know.
It's thoughts of sex. It's sex, but it's the fact that somebody's willing to have sex with you. That's the big thing. Not like the sex itself, but that somebody's even willing to do it.
It's like someone's willing to choose them to
over all other men or any men. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, fair enough.
All right. Okay. Did we figure out all our big problems? Were there any unanswered questions?
Well, he keeps saying that he owned you. Yeah, this is the problem. I hope so.
Yeah, like
completely.
20%.
What was the main takeaway from this then? What needs to change?
He couldn't give an example of the other side.
No, it wasn't. Well, yeah, I was more so critiquing your position and your kind of like framing and I guess your theory on why some of these issues arise. I think that it's ill-founded and inaccurate and fails to kind of like consider factors that would make it necessarily not the case. But I don't personally have kind of like a good answer for like how kind of like we can have more progressive like liberal influencers that kind of like can speak to these issues without sort of in like a constructive way that I think would be overall like positively contributory to the environment.
And what is those positive contributions? Oh, you said you don't have an example of what you think those positive contributions need to look like?
Yeah, I can't think of like how that kind of like should be like beyond like very kind of like cookie cutter stuff that like most people would just be like, yeah, thanks, mom, and then just like go to like jerk off or something.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely do think that I think you dodged the not even dodged, you just straight up conceded that it makes no sense to say that the value proposition argument is a main factor here.
Wait, how does it make no sense? It's literally the whole point. I feel like we've spent this whole conversation. You've agreed with me. You just don't know how to solve the issue.
No, I agree with you in a lot of instances, but I think that I've agreed with much of what you've said, but I don't think that I don't think the value proposition informed by college graduation rates and financial success is the cause.
So do you think right now that there's an equal level of discontent? Well, here, who do you think is easier to get into a relationship, a man or a woman?
Easier to get into a
If they just wanted to start a relationship, would it be a man or a woman? Who's easier to start a relationship?
A woman, almost certainly, right?
Okay, but they don't. So then why are they not doing it if not for what I'm saying? Because the value proposition is just not there for them, or they feel like it's not.
Okay, yes. Now I think we're kind of like playing fast and loose with definitions. Yes, I agree with you that it wouldn't be worth it for a woman to just get into any random relationship despite being able to. But the reason it wouldn't be worth it is not because of a lack of men that are like, I guess, like on their level. It would be because they would know that there are a lot of men that would take advantage of that situation for like very selfish reasons and kind of like try to exploit them. Which I guess you could say is like that's a value proposition within that interaction, but it's not like a societal like, oh, there are a lack of suitable men.
If there aren't a lack of suitable men, then what's wrong? Where's the mismatch? So you're saying there are a bunch of suitable men out there for women, they're just not picking them for some reason?
No, I think they are picking them. That's my whole point. My point is that the suit, as women get more successful, they're more likely to find that suitable man, which means that like if you were to say, okay, what level, and we
Wait, so
we
then
just
there's no
disagree on
issue
how
right
that
now in society.
manifests.
There's no difference in issue right now between men and women being able to find partners. Then that's just a total myth propagated online. It's totally equal right now.
There are issues in men and women being able to find partners.
Wait, but is it more skewed to one side, or are both sides facing the same level of difficulty?
I think that honestly, I mean, this is gonna sound like, I don't even know what this will sound like, but when I talk to like women that I work with and stuff, like they're like, a lot of them are like, dating as a straight woman is miserable.
Yeah.
So I would say, in that respect, it's probably equally difficult. I would just say that women cope better. That's what I would say.
If women are complaining that dating is miserable, then how do we feel like this is an issue on both sides? You don't see a lot of men saying,
Men are
like,
also
man,
complaining.
well, no, they're complaining that they're not dating. No,
Yeah. Wait. Huh?
men are complaining that like dating is
Both
hard.
are
Right?
discontent with the current. Yeah. Both.
Yeah, men are
genders
discontent with their partners and so aren't choosing, and men are having difficulties even being able to choose. No.
Yes, but I mean, like that. I feel like that diagnosis, like, kind of like necessitates that there must at least be one man for every woman that's having an issue, and that man will either be having an issue, the same issue, or won't be having any issue. In which case, like, that just
Well, there are
immediately
literally
tilts the
more
scale.
women than men in society. No, shouldn't there be?
No, there. Yes, but when you say something like what you just said, right?
Mhm.
That would necessitate the woman like doing a dating activity and like being upset by it, which means that like, to speak to that issue, there always is at least one man that is experiencing either the same issue or not experiencing an issue. Whereas with the other one, where you're saying like a lot of men like can't even like get up, like that's like that mean like that's like an exclusively almost like that type of issue would be like an exclusively like singular person type issue.
So right now, both men and women feel like they have equal difficulty finding suitable partners in society. You would say.
Equal difficulty find suitable partners. Maybe.
Okay.
Probably like
I feel like
like,
the vast
I'm-
amount of overwhelming like social stuff would dramatically disagree with you, including every single piece of content you've ever seen. I don't think you could name me a single person who's saying, "Oh yeah, men and women are having the same problems finding suitable partners right now." I think overwhelmingly socially, what we're being told is that women are having trouble finding suitable partners and then you run into the whole diagnosis there.
And you hear men more often talking about feeling rejected.
Yeah.
It becomes this kind of self-victimization, but the reason they're being rejected is just they're not appealing at that point. It's not the fault of the woman if they don't feel attracted to them, right?
Yeah, see, I'm so. This is what I mean when I talk about like the way that you guys kind of like frame things. I agree with what you said, but when you talk about the reason they're being rejected is because they're not appealing, I feel like that is like neglecting the whole. They're also probably 90% of the ones that are putting themselves out there to be rejected. Like, you understand that too, right? So when men are talking about being rejected, it's not necessarily that they're not like it might be that they're not appealing, but it also might be that the women that aren't appealing would be rejected are not putting themselves out there to be rejected. But like that whole kind of like, and then not that that's even like a larger share than men being unappealing, but it's like the fact that like that's what I mean when I say like Dustin, when I say people could watch your content to get a certain impression. Like the fact that you didn't even mention that, to me, I would, if I was gonna mention anything like it, I would have to mention both those things together. Like, well, the reason men are being rejected, obviously, first, men are approaching more and men are competitioning more. Like, period. Like statistically, that will always be the case. When you neglect things like that, you're like, oh, it's just because men are fucking the ass and like can't compete or can't appeal.
Okay, so you think that men
like
today have
trying
just
to
as much
push a
success?
particular-
Men today have just as much success in the dating markets as women as they ever have, and there's not like any unique problems today with regards to dating that are starting to
There
favor.
are unique problems today, and there are unique problems today, and men do have unique afflictions that they are less equipped to deal with.
Well, then how is it
than
even?
women?
Or I don't understand. If it's the same issue, then how can that be? If
I think, okay, I don't want to loop. I guess I keep saying that it's the way that men are unable to deal with those issues, and whereas women are better at dealing with those issues. So they might face similar levels of an issue, but they might be affected to different degrees by the issue. which, and I do believe women are affected less by the issue. Not that they're not affected, and not
Well, then
that
that would be a disparate outcome. That would be a thing that both of them are not having the same issue with. No.
Well, no. Well, I mean, at like the second, like they're from like in a derivative sense, I guess. But if you were to say, like, are men and women both struggling dating to similar degrees? I would say yes. Who's dealing with it better? I would say women deal with that better. But I would say they're still facing the issue. Still exists to in the same capacity. It's just not as detrimental to their kind of like overall well-being and socialization.
I guess so, but then we're playing really weird word games. So then it doesn't exist in the same capacity. You're saying it does exist in the same capacity where they can deal with it better. That means it doesn't exist in the same capacity, right?
Well,
Like if I were to say that me and a poor guy both had issues when our cars like have tires that break, the only difference is that like I can, get a new tire pretty easily and he can't really get one at all. It fucks his whole month up. Well, like we don't really have to deal with that problem the same way then, right? Even if we both have tires pop or whatever, like I can deal with it very easily, so we don't have the same issue with that problem, no?
No, it's more like how to change a tire and another guy doesn't. So your tires pop, and while you both had the same issue, you have the prerequisite capacity to address the issue in a constructive way that allows you to get back on the road. Whereas a guy might just be with other guys, kind of just sat there. He's fucked.
Yeah, so we don't have the same capacity to deal with the issue.
But
I mean, it's even more than that, right? Because if men on average are worse at dealing with it, that in itself is an unattractive trait. So it's actually worsening the problem even more, right? So men are having even more of a problem because of how they're dealing with it. So they're then appealing very unattractive, and then they're projecting all that on it's a woman's problem, where they need to work on themselves. Whereas women on average don't have that reaction. So the reaction itself becomes unattractive on the part of the male.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think I would just like when we're talking about like, oh, is dating like easier for one or the other? I guess I'm just saying like I don't think that it's necessarily easier for one. It's just easier to deal with the tribulations for one. But the problem like is like quantifiably the same, though it's of a different kind in many instances. But I do agree with like the rest of what you said though, that like yes, like the way that men deal with it is uniquely destructive to their well-being and to the well-being of everybody in society, unfortunately.
And
which is
future relationships,
a bigger problem. Yeah, future relationships, future people's like well-being, like people, it's just like families. Yeah, I think that is like a big issue. But I guess when I just talk about like specifically like the topic of like dating, like I think that's different than like how one copes with their struggles.
I mean, none of this is saying that there are not women out there that could also work on themselves, or that everyone could be better partners, right? We're never perfect, so it's not like we're saying, or I'm not going to say what Destiny says, but I wouldn't say that focusing on this is to suggest that there's nothing that women can't do on average, or that men should feel happy about that they're already doing enough of. But this is the more pressing issue, so you look at the more pressing issue, right?
Yeah, all else equal, for sure. So yeah. I mean, I've agreed with the majority of what you said. I just think, like I said, I think the framing could be better, just generally speaking. But I think that's just sort of like a
are you asking
intractable issue?
Are you asking for us to pat each other on the back and say all the good things that we're doing at the same time, or do we need to do that?
A little bit. I think that could be helpful for people.
Did I miss something?
No, I was just saying, like, basically, the reason I'm just asking if I think that, like, coddling, like, these dejected men would help at all, and I think it could help. Coddling to some extent, like.
Yeah, I mean, like, we say coddling, which is, like, very negatively loaded, obviously. But I mean, like, the reality is we would hope that people would get this training prior to being in relationships. You don't want to feel like like the big complaint or a complaint that I've heard a lot from women is you don't want to feel like you're training wheels for a guy to finally learn how to like be an ordinary functional human being. I think that's a really.
But I'm pretty sure that's like almost every fucking guy has to get that in their first relationship, which absolutely sucks for women. Yeah,
but then the flip side there is that you could just get this like in terms of like social training. So the way that we socialize like little boys, or the way that we like ourselves like culturally like enforce certain norms or whatever. But for like this is because you'll hear the complaints from guys who will say things like, oh, I hate that women are always going for older men or whatever. And it's because, well, they figure for the older guys, like they've got that out of the way. Like they don't have to, be their training
They're
wheels
big boys.
Girlfriend. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
we good?
there's truth to that. Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, good.
Yo, so Mooten, you playing Smite?
Fuck no.
Smite
Ooh.
2?
No.
He said, "Fuck no."
Damn.
No, I don't play games anymore. I'm on my grind set like Steve.
Wow.
All right.
Bye.
Be careful, buddy.
Bye.
All right. I got something to fucking say.
Uh oh.
I don't understand how people can say so much and say so little at the same time. And it's not just this guy.
Uh-oh.
This is a problem I see in a lot of streamers too, like Hassan, and I feel like Vosh does this as fucking well. They'll go on massive fucking tangents, but they actually can't get to the root of the fucking point. And they'll say like 90% of random shit, and like the 10% gets buried because I'm like sitting there and I'm trying to figure out what the fuck they just said.
I think one, there's a skill to being able to like get to the point, as dumb as that sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, there might be a little bit of insecurity sometimes about like speaking and getting to the point too quickly. So you feel like you want to fill the air with more stuff.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
Wow.
I'll
What a
pull someone else
what a
up.
side quest.
Let me. Hussein,
Wait.
what do you want to talk about?
wait.
Oh, yeah. Hussein, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, what's up? I was gonna. Oh my God! Thank God. I was gonna talk about geopolitics and like international relations and how that plays into like Trump's whole entire thing. I actually DM'd you
Okay,
about it
you're going to talk
yesterday.
about Trump?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll hear this. Go ahead.
Okay. Destiny, I DM'd you yesterday about neo-mercantilism and Trump's geopolitical footing. I sent you something in DMs, like a general, like my train of thoughts, and like a lot of people like try to like kind of map on Trump into like the like traditional schools of international relations, when I feel like it's more accurate just to map him on to like international political economy, which is another train of like political thought where like what does he do economically, what is his economic footing. And I think he very strongly maps onto neo-mercantilism. Like I have like three main reasons, like the tariffs, his general geopolitical footing, and like this transaction-based viewpoint where he talks about like it's very transaction-based in the sense that, oh, we need to get something concrete out of this. We shouldn't help Ukraine because we don't get much out of it. Like you see like the MAGA talking points, but like at the same time, like it like kind of ties into the other thing I DM'd you about, where it's just like, oh, the Spanish Empire kind of did this whole other thing with like restricted trade barriers and. Oh, I'm talking way too fast. Sorry, I need to slow down. I'm a little
Don't
bit
read
nervous.
chat. They're retarded.
Okay,
Don't read
sorry.
them.
Okay. So, like, number one, the tariffs. The example I was going to talk to you about was the Spanish American example. This, like, I have a whole like article like from the journal of political economy that I could like send you. But essentially, the Spanish Empire, as a colonial power, put forward trade barriers and limited intercontinental trade in order to increase their short-term and economic gain and benefit. But this neutered the Spanish economy in the long term. I could like, it's very hard to map on like previous like historical events onto like current like geopolitical reality. Like that's a thing I would not entirely go off of. But I can see like how this can negatively affect the United States. Like for example, like the reason the Spanish Empire kind of declined throughout the later years of the 20th century, the 19th, 18th century, is because like other nations like trade-based like naval empires like the UK, the Dutch, and later the United States, they put up like lowered trade barriers, and they actually engaged in capitalism, which actually made America great. So I guess like going back to what I DM'd you, like would you like disagree, like after going through the first point, would you disagree or agree with like this entire notion that Trump is a neo-mercantilist, or do you want to, should I like go through a couple more points?
I mean, like maybe I could agree. I just don't care that much. I don't know what part of my analysis or why would this framing change anything that I think about Trump? Like, is there some new insight to be learned from this, or?
Yeah. Because like if you, well, like there's is like if you think about like the discussion around Trump, like people try to like put him into like a single box. Would you just say like he's more personally motivated like by optics, but like he thinks everything is theater? He doesn't really have like an ideology like that?
Yeah, I would say he probably doesn't have an ideology. I think he's just motivated by things that personally make him feel good. So like,
Okay, that's valid, but how do you explain the other figures within the Trump administration? Because you talked about yesterday on stream.
I think the other figures all have wildly different motivations. Like Stephen Miller seems to be driven by whatever weird America First ideology he has. Vance is probably driven by whatever weird ideology he had, and Peter Thiel and all those, like these guys are all driven probably by different ideologies. But I guess I don't see enough of them publicly to have a strong feeling or statement about what their ideologies are. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I have a backup for that because if you disagree with like the framing around neo-mercantilism, I was just gonna ask you also about the Saudi-American relations. Do you think
What is neuromercantilism? Can you explain for some of the retards
Okay.
in the chat?
Yeah, mercantilism essentially was the economic modus operandi. It was like the way imperial economies in Europe functioned, which that there was high trade barriers. They limited intercontinental trade like between their colonies. So like example, in the Spanish Empire, if you're in Mexico, you can trade with like Brazil, you can trade with like Peru or Chile or Argentina. And neo-mercantilism is the idea that after the Cold War, there has been a class of political economists that want to bring this back and bring up high trade barriers and increase exports but decrease imports and like reshore manufacturing. So like
Got it.
I feel like this maps pretty accurately onto Trump. But the other thing is, would you agree or disagree with America's current relationship with Saudi Arabia? And do you think it's a good thing overall? Because I wanted to ask you about that also.
I would say it's a good thing overall. Yeah. I'm probably gonna say that. To
Why
Okay,
do you like the
most,
Saudis?
friends that we have? Yeah.
I would disagree with that because I feel like despite like the clear benefits it has, like with like the price of oil wanting to be stable between like what is it like $70 and $80 a barrel, I think the Saudi Arabia existing as it does today, without the United States pushing it towards either democratization or either some more secular or liberal reforms, has stunted the political development of the entire Middle East. So that's like one thing. Another thing is that they're just like morally like it looks kind of bad for the United States optically because like you have this like modern first
Well,
world
there's
country.
two parts for the first one. Like you're assuming that they would develop more democratically in a vacuum otherwise, but who's to say that China or even Russia wouldn't have been able to come in and exert more influence to prevent that development? Would be the first
Oh,
thing,
that's
right?
because of That's because of culture. Because have you read Samuel Huntington?
Yeah, all of his books. No, I haven't.
Okay, sorry. Samuel Huntington is like a cultural determinist. While I don't agree with like all of his works, a thing he does talk about is like the cultural differences between the Islamic world and the Western world. Like for example, the reason Russia and a lot of Muslim countries were very like very aggressive towards each other in like the early 2000s was because of the Chechen War. And like I come from a Muslim background, I'm not very religious anymore, but this whole thing about like a very core tenet of Islam is that you're supposed to take the side of a Muslim over a non-Muslim. I think you've heard this before. So like this can tie into like Russian like Saudi relations, Russian Middle Eastern relations, Chinese Middle Eastern relations, because right now China is currently like committing a genocide against the Uyghur people. And yes, you can argue that like the economic benefits like trump that, but even now there's a growing political movement like in the Muslim Brotherhood where they want to distance themselves from. There's like this term for al-bara. I don't speak good Arabic, but they want to like cut themselves out of the relationship with America.
Sure,
but
but
also with Russia and China.
if we look at how the Middle East, if we look at how Muslim countries conduct themselves, like that, there's the fantasy of like the Ummah and that all the Muslims kind of align with each other, but they clearly don't, right?
They hate each other.
Well, this yes, kind of, but there's also the Sunni-Shia divide. Sunnis are more likely to take a Sunni side over a Shia side, yes, but at the same time, they're more likely to take Sunni sides over a non-Sunni side, like a Christian or a Jewish side. Like this entire like movement within Egypt right now and within Palestine with the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, it is based off religious like ideas and religious texts, which necessitate the need for like a self-sufficiency for Muslims, and that
Sure, but if I were to take a lens of analysis and I were to look at the Middle East and I were to say I'll use my boring liberal informed like geopolitical interest and liberal economy like very broadly, if I were to use that analysis and then I were to compare that to the Muslims like to stick together analysis, which one is going to be more predictive of the current state of affairs in the Middle East?
I think you can use both, but I feel like the liberal thing could.
Yeah, and anytime, like, I can think of some conflicts between Muslims that are solved by the liberal analysis, but I can't think of any problems that exist that I can't explain with my current international framework that, like, the Muslim analysis would help me understand. Like, can you give me an example of that? Like, where it's like, oh, well, like, how do you explain this action? And it's like, oh, well, fuck, I guess I can't, yeah.
Well, you can explain this, like going back to Saudi Arabia. How would you explain through a liberal analysis? Saudi Arabia is very tied closely with America. How would you explain the like billionaires under the Saudi royal family like sending funds, sending arms to ISIS, which is an American enemy at the time?
Well, the first question would be, at what point were they doing this? Because I would have to go back and like really dig into this, but arguably the United States was kind of okayish with ISIS in the beginning, right? Because the easy explanation from the liberal perspective is ISIS's main enemy was our enemy. It was Assad, right? Which is where ISIS was starting, was in Syria. Yeah?
Well, also to like kind of reinforce your point, to bring some other perspective, ISIS's main enemy was Assad because there are Alawites, there is like heretics in the Orthodox Islamic view, and there were enemies to Iran, so that's also correct. But
well, kind of, but also, I would also say because they were in their country, they were right next to them, right?
Yeah, true. Okay, true. But so your first point was saying that they were enemies with Assad. That's why America was okay with the ISIS. What was your other point? You're gonna have another?
Well, I would say that would be the big one, is that like they shared a common enemy.
Yes, but okay. Wait. Let me think about this. When you say Assad and I mean America and ISIS held a common enemy, this is. America was still conducting ground operations against Al Qaeda in Iraq before it turned into ISIS, and they killed Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, like the head of Al Qaeda in Iraq. So they were actively fighting ISIS, despite this notion where like ISIS and America could be a common enemy against Assad. But also there's like nuance between like I know you're kind of referencing al-Nusra, but there's nuance between like al-Nusra and Al Qaeda in Iraq and ISIS, if you understand what I'm saying.
Sure, yeah, but I would say that ISIS wasn't like for real until like Baghdadi was in Syria and starting to recruit, right? Like they're relatively minor, not like a minor player in Iraq before they went to Syria and started recruiting a fuck ton of people, right?
Well, they were recruiting mostly like foreign al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda in Syria and Iraq. They got a lot of people mostly from like disaffected like Sunni people, but they also got a lot of people from international recruiting. Like
that they showed up as well, sure.
Tons of Russians. Yeah, but okay, so this thing, when I say the Saudis were billionaires were sending money to ISIS, they did this most principally in the early formation days, like in 2014, 2013, when ISIS was really, after the death of Musab al-Zarqawi, and ISIS was reconstituting, and there was a split between, at the time, Ayman al-Zawahiri and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi over who had authority over the Muslim world.
Mm-hmm.
So
wouldn't I expect Saudi Arabia to be backing, even ignoring, like, let's pretend I didn't know any of these people were religious, wouldn't I expect Saudi Arabia to be backing basically anybody that would fuck with Syria, Iraq, or Iran?
Yes, that's a good point. Yes, but they continued to do so even until America started conducting airstrikes, especially after ISIS started their convoy push into like Kurdish areas, like especially Erbil, and especially when they were going into Tikrit, into Baghdad. There were still Saudi billionaires financing ISIS, but I guess I have to get you a source on that for you to believe me.
It wouldn't surprise me if maybe that was the case, though I would be curious if they were lockstep with Saudi interest, or if these were kind of like their own people doing it. So, like, for instance, like Bin Laden, I think, was not aligned with Saudi interest by the time he was like massively funding Al Qaeda and had moved to Afghanistan or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Even though he was technically of Saudi origin. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I think my main point on that front is that, like, in Saudi Arabia, there's this myth in the West that like the Gulf states are very like pro-capitalist. They are very capitalist in their leanings, but like they're not, like politically they're very authoritarian. So like even though there's like this market freedom, billionaires, like similar to in China, they still have to toe the party line, which is the party is like the Sahwa or the Saudi royal family. So like despite this, there was like billionaires, like there's numerous of them. Like I think Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya can report on this, that they were directly funding like elements of ISIS, and they were sending arms and weapons to ISIS. Like there's a reason why, like when you look at like these like early videos, like some of these ISIS people, they have had like American equipment despite them not overrunning any like American bases yet. It's, like the main one was like Mosul, where a lot of like American tanks were captured.
Sure.
But the thing is, when like these billionaires are sending money to ISIS, it's not like the Saudi royal crown is like saying don't do this and do it anyway. It's an authoritarian society.
Do you think they were doing it because they just wanted to back their fellow religious people?
that's one part of it. Another part could just be that the Saudi royal family. I mean, like you could be right in a sense, like the Saudi royal family kind of just like let it happen because they're fighting against like Iran and like the Syrians like early on. But like after America started like sending in like special forces, when they started like getting really involved in the airstrikes like under Obama, it doesn't make sense like in a liberal perspective to say, oh, the Saudis they just let this happen because like, oh, whoopsie, they just had no like control over these billionaires. Like, their billionaires weren't rogue when this is like a politically authoritarian society.
Okay, yeah. I guess I would have to know more about the individual funders. I guess what their motivation was. I'm curious. How do you explain when you look at an entity like Hamas or whatever that is like more Sunni aligned? How do you explain like Iran being willing to work with them? And yeah.
Oh, this is I actually really excited to talk about this because I feel when you were going on your anti-Muslim arc like 3 years ago, 4 years
Anti-Muslim
ago,
arc, Jesus.
I feel
Okay.
oh well, like it was like you were fighting with like Salafists online. But,
Okay.
Like, I think like a thing you kind of failed in like your level of analysis, not level of analysis, your like framing of the analysis of like Islam was that there's like so many there's like obviously there's Sunni and there's Shia, right? But there's so
Sure.
many like different schools of thoughts under Sunni Islam. Like there's mainly Salafism, which become really prominent, but even under Salafism there's like different like political motivations.
Yeah.
Like
To
or
be clear,
political,
from like real quick, what is your background? Are you like Middle Eastern?
I'm Ethiopian. I'm an Ethiopian Muslim.
Okay. So for me, and maybe this is not the same anywhere else or whatever, but like for me, I've never in my life from a Middle Easterner heard something like, oh, like Sunni and Shia. Like that seems to be exclusively like a Western thing when we say like Sunni and Shia. But like in the Middle East, there's a lot more granularity in identifying like different, micro movements or different factions of, like these particular things. Yeah.
Well, like these religious movements meld and like merge with political movements because like Islam is a inherently political religion. Like it's more overt than Christianity in a sense.
Sure.
But like when I'm talking about Hamas is from like Sheikh Izzeldin what's his name?
You're getting the guy Sheikh something,
like,
whatever you're saying, Sheikh something. Yeah.
Yassine.
Sure.
Like the main guy, he studied in Al Azhar University in Cairo, like which is a very like Salafist university, but it has elements of not only like Shia thought, it has like Maturidi and Ash'ari thought. So like this guy was like he knew, and he was very very lockstep with like Salafi thought, but like he was aware of like other strands of thought. The main thing about the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas is that they're Ikhwani in like their approach to Sunni Shia relations. So they would work with a Shia person or like a Shia political entity like Iran because of like just the entire religious like motivations of that specific sect of Salafism. Like when I assume you don't know who Hassan al-Banna is, right?
Oh yeah, he's from the Muslim Brotherhood, right?
Yeah, he's like the main like spiritual like
I'm just
founder
kidding.
of the Muslim Brotherhood.
I have no idea who that was, so I was a super
no,
lucky guess. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he's like the founder, de facto founder of the Muslim Brotherhood because during the British occupation of Egypt, there's a Wafd and that kind of merged into the Muslim Brotherhood. But the thing he did, even before Sayyid Qutb, who was like the main religious scholar, the thing he did was he kind of like melded the relationship between Sunnis and Shias explicitly because the time he lived in, he lived in like increasing Jewish migration into Palestine or like the land of Israel or whatever you want to call
Oh,
it.
they don't like that.
Yeah, so like he had the foresight to be like, this could be a potential problem in the future, and like this we should like kind of mend our relationship if we're gonna fight another like crusader force, because like a lot of like in the Muslim like ideology or the Muslim culture zeitgeist, like Israelis are just seen like as an extension of crusaders, if you know about that. So,
why do you think there's been an inability for the Muslim world, if they see themselves as all part of the same congregation of people, why haven't they been able to come together to like fight off like the invader? I don't know if they have a name for non-Muslims or whatever, but why haven't they been able to do that?
It's just kuffar, or like for the Jews, it's Yahud. But this has been something that's been talked about a lot in like contemporary Muslim sources or even like political scientist sources. But I think the main thing is that they're so politically and economically stunted. Like talking again, like reaching back to my main point about Saudi Arabia, the Saudis, they want normalization with Israel. Like you said this before.
Yeah.
The main royal family want normalization with Israel, but the people want to continue fighting with Israel. So there's kind of push-pull effect. And the Saudis, because they have oil wealth, they have a lot of money, they essentially what they do is they just bribe their neighbors into like oblivion and keep up like autocratic, like not even Islamists, sometimes secular regimes, like the current guy, Abdel Fattah Sisi. He is like when he military couped the Muslim Brotherhood guy, Mohammed Morsi. He did so like for the core reason of like not there's it's not core reason, like there's other factors, but like American and Saudi pressure. Because if Egypt fell into the Muslim Brotherhood would just like not only would they be incredibly like religiously conservative, they would be like doing all this bad shit, like social terms, but they would probably be pretty aggressive towards Israel.
Yeah, we don't care about that other thing at all. That's an American myth that America's never honest about. But like, we would prefer. There's a reason why we prefer these monarchies in the Middle East, and it's because the monarchy leadership is loyal to the U.S. interest, right? But if we could choose between having like a democracy in the Middle East in any of these countries versus a monarchy that's loyal to us, I mean, I don't know. I guess it would depend on the U.S. leader, but in general, I think we would back that monarchy, right? That's loyal to the U.S.
No, that's exactly my point.
Sure.
So the thing is, when you talk about like Muslims and like the disconnect between Muslim leaders and like the upper echelon Muslim leadership, the whole thing is that the Saudis essentially they act like as a bulwark for American interests into like bribing their neighbors into oblivion and like just keeping up.
That's why I try to like illustrate the difference. Sometimes like I'll use a term like the Arab Street might feel a little bit differently than Arab leadership, because Arab leadership is kind of in a way, well, it was handpicked, but it's still largely supported by America because they represent American interests probably a bit more than the people do. Although my feeling is that over time, the people's feelings are probably changing a bit as well, just because once you've lived in economic prosperity to some point in time and you're like generations removed from huge conflict, you probably start to care less and less about it, we might guess.
No, yeah. I think that's generally true. The thing is, like, what I'm trying to tie into this point, like this tangent we went off in, the reason that America keeps Saudi Arabia, like exactly what you said, it can act as a bulwark against like anti-American interests. It could stop like Islamic fundamentalist group, even though they're themselves very religiously conservative. They could like continue like to help America economically. But at the same time, what you're doing here, I think your friend Kraut had a really good video on this, but what they're doing is they're stunting political development. So even if there was like a chance that the Middle East could go democratized or secularized, because of the state of affairs being kind of like frozen in time, that can never happen. You know, do you kind of understand the core of my argument?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with this. I wish that they fucked up the recording. It was so fucking annoying. But I talked to some guy on the Middle East Eye called he's a South African. It's like Ash. He just said to call him Ash or whatever. I can't pronounce his fucking name. But the idea that like, because a lot of people talk about like Western imperialism in the Middle East, and usually it's just the most retarded shit ever. But like on a more honest analysis, the true quote unquote imperialism that impacts the Middle East today is the fact that the United States favors leadership that is loyal to the U.S. interests, even if that leadership is not necessarily democratic. And then the next step to that is it might be the case that in the Middle East you could see democratic leadership emerge, but right now the United States definitely wouldn't be okay with that if it meant displacing an autocratic regime that was loyal to the United States. Therefore, there might be a stunt of the development of these Middle Eastern nations towards democracy, basically supported by the United States. They would support the autocratic regime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
No.
Yeah. I think I don't disagree with that necessarily. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my main point would be like the United States should at least try. Like there's other like more secular, more democratic allies in the region, like Tunisia or Jordan or even Turkey. Even Turkey's taking like democratic backslides right now, which is not good. But I just feel like with the whole Trump administration, like tying back to like my point you agreed with, so we didn't really go into like this idea that like this transactionary approach Trump is taking, where like he's accepting bribes from Qatar, like he's like they're having like the Saudi royal prince like come to the White House, and like, I'm not saying like that in itself is like out of the blue. Like of course foreign leaders are going to come to the Oval Office, but at the same time, this idea that Trump is not pushing these countries to be more democratic and just keeping the status quo when the status quo is like untenable right now. You know what I mean? Like
sure, but
like,
I guess the reason
like
why I don't do like this whole like I don't really do a lot of ideological analysis, because like Trump is not any of the things you've just said. Trump has no fucking idea. He's purely operating out of narcissism. But I do agree. I wish one of the issues I think when it comes to guiding regions that the United States has just lost, I think largely because unfortunately the citizens are just fucking retarded, is to actually guide leadership or countries in the Middle East. I think you need like a comprehensive vision of what you want the region to look like. And Trump doesn't have any vision of that other than like people are nice to me and give me planes and say nice things to me, right? But you would need a leader to come up who's willing to invest some political capital and has a vision of what they think the Middle East ought to look like, and then to push for it. Because the Saudi, none of the monarchies in the Middle East are going to give up their rule for no reason, right?
Yeah, that's just there's not been a single monarchy where they have just like willingly, hey, we're gonna relinquish power now, lol.
Sure.
Like, that just hasn't really happened.
Mm-hmm.
But to like agree with you, but to also like, okay, I'm gonna say something that might like kind of trigger you, but like just
Okay.
I feel like Obama, in terms of his Middle East policy, he wasn't like ostensibly terrible, but he was dealt a bad hand with the situation that he inherited from Bush.
Mhm.
But like his geopolitical focus was very unfocused. So like tying back to like international relations, there's like realism, there's liberalism,
Sure.
and then there's like this English school. Obama is not like a realist. He's not like a liberal, like in terms of international relations. He kind of took from all of these different like strains of thoughts. Like he was a liberal when it came to what am I thinking about? He was a liberal when it came to like the Arab Spring in like in Egypt and like in other places. Like in Iraq, he was a liberal. Like he was like upholding liberal interests. He was like promoting democracy. But like he was like a staunch realist when it came to like Ukraine. Like he essentially allowed like Russia to annex Ukraine. If I'm not
Yeah,
like,
I would say
citing that
even
too
like
wrongly.
I understand what you're saying, and maybe you can disagree with me, but like I don't even know if I would say Obama was like drawing from different schools of thought. It almost felt like Obama was elected. One, we had a domestic issue. Well, it was global, but like with the housing crisis, so there was economic stuff going on. And then I think that the U.S. population's appetite for foreign stuff was severely decreased after Iraq and Afghanistan. I feel like Obama was just mainly like reactionary to things that were happening. So like the Libya stuff was kind of like reactionary to Gaddafi and the insanity there. And like
Yeah.
our
Oh, yeah,
approach to
that's exactly what I was
ISIS.
gonna say.
Yeah, our approach to ISIS, like we didn't really, I don't think we took the reins on much there. It was all just kind of like reacting to stuff that was going on. And
Yeah, but do you understand when you like take that step back instead of being like proactive and you be reactive,
Mm-hmm.
you lose kind of the initiative when it comes to like geopolitical events.
Absolutely,
like yes. So like when Obama like just let Ukraine kind of just get steamrolled by Russia, not to like use like hyperbolic language.
Mm-hmm.
When he let that happen, it was just setting the grounds for like Putin to invade Ukraine in 2022. Like you understand what I'm talking about? Like, so like I'm not saying like Obama's like the worst president geopolitically. I would say like he was pretty good domestically, even though like I'm Canadian, so I don't really know what the fuck happened domestically. But I feel like when you talk about like the idea that we need an actual like president who has principles, who has like a specific like strain of thought of, okay, we're gonna approach this by liberal values, like liberal internationalism. We're gonna do liberal economic values. If you guys had a president like that, it would obviously be work. But like I feel like this is why I said it might trigger you. Obama was not necessarily that president, but I think you kind of disagree because he was just dealt a bad hand essentially.
dealt a bad hand, kind of, but also like I would say that I mean this is kind of like one of the issues, right, with the democratic regime is that I think that in the Cold War, the United States had like a big guiding principle for how to conduct foreign politics, which was like just basically fight against the domino theory of the communists, right? It felt like we had like a thing to orient around. And then you would have a consistent, from White House to White House, you would have a consistent like policy that didn't differentiate too much, from one administration to the next. Maybe they had varying levels of hostility maybe towards the Soviet Union, but generally speaking, it was like this is the enemy. And then once the Soviet Union fell, not only, do you have questions of like, did NATO lose track of its mission or what's going on, but like the US, I think foreign policy wise kind of lost track. We did the Gulf War. I think everybody could agree. The first one is like, okay, well, this is bad. You can't invade countries and do horrible shit and all of that. And then we kind of like invade that and get rid of that. And then we're kind of like looking for ways to apply military pressure, and you get your Bosnia Serbia stuff, which is also kind of bad. But then our first like big fumble was Iraq, Afghanistan. So once that happens, and then we have a huge fumble and everything is fucked up, and we have no more common enemy. Now the American population desire for foreign anything it has evaporated, right? And you run into this weird thing where it's like, why are we involved in anything at all? And it's hard to justify that to the average American now that we don't have a common enemy, and it's hard to speak honestly about U.S. foreign policy interests. And so then you end up in a world where basically all the U.S. population loses their care for dealing with foreign affairs, and then how do you get a consistent policy from White House to White House dealing with that? Yeah, we basically just abdicate our whole role internationally. Yeah.
Wait. Everything you said was like I agree with, but I have like 5 things I want to talk about. I'll just like pick 2.
Sure.
Like my whole like degree, like international relations, like the entire study of international relations was like flipped on its head with the end of the Cold War, because like traditional like classical realists, they expected the Soviet Union to go on for a long more time, like
Sure.
into like the near future. So like when this happened, like liberals took over, and like this is tying into your thing, like they didn't have like a concrete like enemy, like you know Francis Fukuyama, that famous scholar.
Yeah,
He
the
said
end
this
of
is the end of
history,
history.
whatever,
Yeah, exactly. So like without like a clear goal, like liberals obviously like they fumbled the bag, yes, but but at the exact same time, like how am I supposed to phrase this? At the same time, like you can't like expect like the like average people to like have like good like geopolitical positions because they just don't have the time to like the average person doesn't know like what realism or like neo-Marxism is like, but like you need like a good leader to like kind of channel in like just the like channel the people into like a positive direction, and like
Sure.
Bush just didn't do that. Like
Yeah.
Bush was a liberal.
Yeah, I think Bush. Yeah, I think I. Oh, maybe you can tell me. But before you say that, just real quick, I would agree. But I would say that like when you have like one big bad enemy like the Soviet Union, I think it's a lot easier as a leader to say like, well, this is the enemy and this is who we fight and boom, 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 and you don't really have to like do much in terms of propaganda. Like it kind of writes itself, you know.
Yeah.
And then we really did need better leadership to kind of channel our, I guess, our foreign policy better, and we just didn't get that. Can you tell me? I actually have no idea what the answer is. Why did we go to war with Iraq?
Why did we go to war with Iraq?
Yeah,
Oh,
what
we
the
just
fuck
went
is
to.
the point?
I feel like
Oil.
in my studies, okay, well the professor like I'm studying under for this, he has like two reasons. One is like a really funny like psychological reason, like it's like
Don't
a,
say the Bush
like a
daddy
personal
thing.
analysis of
Go
Bush.
ahead.
Yes, the Bush daddy thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's like one reason. The other reason is that America wants, it's not like this whole like thing where like, oh, Israel made America invade Iraq, or like it's not like, oh, oil, like they want to steal the oil, which is like the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire. I hate when like my Muslim parents like repeat that shit to me. Anyways, but the main thing was like expanding American influence. Like this entire theory of like the domino theory was kind of flipped on its head and like made to like fit into Iraq. Like if Iraq became democratic, the rest of the Middle East became democratic, and thus we would have peace and Israel Palestine would be solved and everything would be okay. That was like Bush's like and you see this in like the memoirs of like people in the Department of Defense, the Secretary of State, like everyone had this idea that, oh, if we just like invade Iraq and we just make them democratic, then like everyone's gonna see democracy and liberalism and like capitalism is the best thing ever, and then we're just gonna like have the like fairy tale line, everything's gonna be fine. But in reality, like going back to Samuel Huntington, there's like this is like the main like contrast I have, like this like fight in my ideas. Like I'm just like, well, maybe liberalism is, I think liberalism is in general good, but at the same time I don't think that it's kind of contradicting my previous point. I don't think it's necessarily possible in the current situation for the Middle East. So like when Bush like invaded Iraq and he's like, okay, we're gonna do democracy now, we're gonna do democracy promotion, because of the cultural like framework Iraqis and like much of the Middle East operated under, it was kind of impossible, and just based off the political institutions, for Iraq to become democratic. So when you talk about like America like kind of just losing like the moral high ground, or like the political like capital they gained from defeating the Soviet Union in Iraq, I completely agree with that. It's just something I'm gonna have to like research more when I go and potentially go into my master's. But like,
Sure. One
yeah,
issue
like, so,
that I
like,
heard
the
that
main-
came as a weakness when it came for foreign policy for America was like this misunderstanding that like the transition to democracy can theoretically be like a slower one, and in the United States we don't view secular dictatorships as being any better than theocratic dictatorships, so we treat both the
Yes.
same and we want to get rid of both of them with the same fervor. But the reality is like a transition from some kind of like theocratic dictatorship, a strict theocratic dictatorship, to one that's slightly more secular might actually be highly
Well,
preferential. But like in the United States we don't say it differently. Yeah, go ahead.
I disagree with that. Maybe it's just
Okay.
because like my Muslim experiences, but like Assad was like just the worst human in the history of, not the history, but like he was like one of the worst humans. Like him like recruiting Hezbollah to like kill Palestinians in death camps, him like barrel bombing every city like north of Aleppo, like him barrel bombing Idlib, Hama, like Homs, like him like gassing Homs like with the sarin gas. Like I don't think necessarily there's, if you talk about like ideologically, I would agree like a secular.
I do, real quick, I'll say on that,
authoritarian-
like, I do agree that Bashar al-Assad was not good. But before Hafez took over, I felt like for the Syrian regime, you know, in the early 1900s, it was like every 2 years, it felt like there was a new coup revolution. And then it wasn't until basically Egypt took over the country, kind of. And then after that, you get the Assads that come in and it's got more stability, even if they're bad guys. But go ahead.
I mean, yeah, that could be true, but wait, do you have you like read about like the Syrian fascist uprising? Is that a thing have you read about?
Which in what
you might have
years?
done that. in the 40s there was this.
I don't know.
I'm not sure if it
I
was
don't know
settled.
much about it. I just know that like the leadership ends up trading hands like pretty frequently back and forth until there's this combined country. What is it called? Like the Arab state? I don't know what it's called, but like at one point, like Syria and Egypt were the same country.
Oh, the United Arab Emirate. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
something, not remember,
No,
but something like that. Yeah.
No, United Arab Republic. United Arab Republic,
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then I think it's after that. I think Hafiz comes in, Assad, and then they finally have some like leadership stability. Again, I'm not cheering for the Assads or anything, obviously, but that it was an improvement from what existed prior to that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm just really enjoying this conversation.
Sure, you're good.
The thing is, when we talk, if you want to get into like ideology, like of course, like in the grand scheme of things, like a secular authoritarian state would be better, but in practice, when you look at like when you look up like Bashar al-Assad, when you look at Lee Kuan Yew, like when you look at like secular authoritarians, Lee Kuan Yew is like a Singaporean example. But, like if you look at like the most principal example is of course Bashar al-Assad, but like was it Hosni Mubarak and then after him Abdel Fattah al-Sisi? Like these people like are just like terrible. There's like in Egypt, like the similar to Sayyidina prison in Syria, there's like this torture complex where they just like torture, they just kidnap religious people and torture them. Like there's this thing in it's like south of Cairo. I don't know if you could Google that. Like there's just this whole torture complex where they just torture religious people. So like yeah, sure, on paper like America would want these nations to be more democratic, more secular, but in practice, by upholding like the political stagnation and the stagnation in political development of these countries, if you're just gonna like freeze them in like this authoritarian like hellscape where they you said you read the Quran, okay, you're going to like the torture prison, but I just don't see like the practical application of that being better than like let's say like Saudi Arabia or like ISIS or like, because like I'm not saying it's just it's hard to say like would you rather be sent to like a torture prison than beheaded? Like it's just kind of like know what I mean.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I've also gotten pushback on this where I've heard people say that like, yes, there are theocratic or there are secular regimes on paper, I guess like de jure, but like de facto, a lot of these end up very similar to theocratic regimes anyway. With Egypt and Sadat being an example of being like a secular regime, but Sadat still went to like Muslim scholars for fatwas or still like prayed like, and it was a very like public thing about his religion and everything. So they weren't like as secular as you might imagine like a secular dictatorship would be.
Well, this ties into your point about like the disconnect between the rulers and the people. Like I don't think, despite like there's like major leaps in like the irreligiosity in like young Muslim people in like Muslim countries, like especially in the Middle East. Despite this, the vast majority of people in the Middle East are extremely like very religious. Like,
sure.
Have you read about the Ataturk at all?
No. Which one is this guy?
Ataturk was the father of Turkey. Like he's the one who fought the Greeks. He's the one who kind of fought the Kurds and Armenians, etc., etc. The thing is, like when he took over the state apparatus of Turkey,
well, this event you're talking about like the revolution, everything after like 1917 or like after the like World War I?
Yes, after World War I. So like the thing what he did was like he intensely secularized the entire Turkish society. That means like removing the Sheikh al-Islam. The Sheikh al-Islam essentially is like the highest like legal like power. It's like the Supreme Court essentially, but like very very like roughly, where like the like a religious like position where like they hold like legal precedence. And then like he got rid of like their like all like schooling in Turkey before Ataturk was done by religious schooling. So if you wanted to learn math or science or like literature, you would have to learn religion too. When this disappeared in Turkey, this didn't necessarily disappear in the rest of the Middle East. So this explains why the Middle East is so religious, because it's just baked into their society, and there hasn't been like even the secular rulers. Like Bashar al-Assad took major leaps in kind of rolling this back, but he wasn't successful before the civil war started. So the thing is, like what I'm trying to get at is that like the disconnect is there, but like just the religion is just so ingrained within like Middle Eastern and Arab Islamic society that unless you had like a very like revolutionary leader like Ataturk to kind of like take those steps back and or forward and like kind of remove that from government in order for Turkey to democratize, then it's not really going to happen. Like even you see now with Turkey, like
one thing that seems pretty extraordinary for the Middle East, maybe this is true for all of history, I guess, but I haven't studied any history as in depth as I have for Israel, is like I don't know if you've heard, I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly, which is stupid Joe Rogan shit, but like this idea of like great man theory, or the idea that like a singular person could make like a huge change in like the path of history.
I'm sorry.
You think
this
it's retarded?
This is the most retarded.
Okay, yeah.
No, it's obviously retarded.
Okay, cool. Well, okay, Tell me why. Because I feel like sometimes there are like particular leaders where like if not for this singular individual, maybe somebody else would have come up otherwise. It seems almost unfalsifiable in how it is. But yeah, go for it.
Well, I used to be a history major, so like, the first class I took was like a history major required course, and like we laid out the theories of history, the viewpoints of history, like Marxist theories of history, like liberal theories of history, like all this stuff. I think the one thing that stuck with me the most is when the professor said, if anyone points towards like one figure as like changing everything, they're probably like fucking either lying or retarded. He didn't say that, but like that's like the gist of what he said. So wait,
Sure,
like, point towards, like, a figure.
I do believe that. So like for instance, like it would be a person who would have to be situated at the right point at the right time, but like the conditions would have to be appropriate for that person to make a huge change. So like when people say, for instance, like World War I was caused by the assassination of Franz Ferdinand or whatever, right?
Franz Ferdinand, yeah.
It's not really true, right? Or one of the definitely not true things for Israel-Palestine. A lot of people will say that Sharon caused the Second Intifada when he stepped onto the Temple Mount. It's not really like the failure of Oslo and everything. That's why this exploded, right? They're just waiting for that fire point. I guess when I think of great man, maybe the great man people are legitimately retarded and think that one person could just come from the shadows and change everything. I'm just thinking in terms of like there are pivotal moments sometimes in history where like the right leader can make such an important and monumental choice, and without that leader, things could take a much different direction. So for Israel-Palestine, I would say that like Arafat was such a massive fuck up for the whole Palestinian people that a different man there could have done something so much different, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but like, how does it get to that point? Is like the whole like when you study history, you don't study like, oh, this specific person fucked up. What led them to be in that position to fuck up?
Sure, of course. So the fact that Palestinian leader, right? So the counter would be like, oh, so you thought Arafat was the big problem? Well, why was he even the Palestinian leader? It's like, well, okay, I guess it was because he was born of a military resistance. Well, why was there military resistance? Okay, I guess it's right. So it's not. So the man is produced by the circumstances, sure, to some extent.
Exactly. Like I would just ask you to like point towards like one. Even when you look at Arafat, like he existed in the what is that like one like very progressive meme, or like Kamala said this or something. You exist in the context of what you did. You didn't follow a coconut tree or whatever.
Yeah,
like
sure.
Arafat exists because he grew up in that specific society that was in conflict with Israel. Like you can characterize the entire Arafat's entire personality by growing up in that political environment. Like I don't know too much about the specifics, but like was he not involved heavily with the PLO in his youth?
Arafat?
Yes.
Yeah, I think wasn't he the founder basically that movement they fought?
Yeah,
from the
no,
West Bank?
exactly. He was the founder.
Yeah.
So even if you can point to him like being like this, oh, he fucked up the most if someone else was there, like there's just like this whole thing of like causality, like, oh, why was he there to fuck up in the first place?
Sure.
Like, I feel like it's a very reductive view of history, just like narrow it down to like, oh, this one person is like retarded and that's why everything's
sure.
bad
And actually, I guess I agree with that, because there are times sometimes where I ask questions about like, oh, why is it that in this society we were lucky enough to have this democratic leader that exhibited the right that exhibited the right personality traits in order to guide us in this direction. But then a piece of pushback I'll get sometimes, usually it's history majors are emailing me, is like, one thing that you don't consider is that it might be that certain societies produce different types of leadership. Like it's not like a George Washington type figure would have necessarily appeared in like a caliphate, right? Like there's a certain type of society that produces these types of people. That for sure, which is for sure. I agree with that, of course.
Okay. I don't want to be like I'm not just shitting on the last caller, but like I was like in the waiting room for like 3 hours.
No, you're good. Yeah, go for it. What else?
Last thing. Okay. When you're gonna play League again?
Never.
Okay.
Wait, do you think when you were looking at the thing earlier, do you think that this deal that is in front of Ukraine, do you think that this is a good deal for Ukraine?
No, this is the worst fucking. This is the most retarded deal I've ever heard of. Like this, you know what this is like? You obviously went to Catholic school from like watching your streams, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like imagine like you're in a religious class, right? And then your teacher's like, okay, so we're gonna give you a test, right? But I'm gonna like know all the answers, and you're gonna know none of the answers, and then I'm gonna like put like 3 bonus questions that weren't like on the material, and then you're like, okay. And then the teacher's like, wait, no, not yet. We're actually gonna like put like 3 math calculus questions on the test, and like this whole thing where like Ukraine is, that was a shit analogy, but Ukraine is just like, oh, we want to negotiate, we want like to keep our land, and then like this like retarded shit with like the backdoor deals where it's just like, oh, we're gonna send like 2 Russian people who are just gonna give this deal to Trump and he's just gonna table it. Like, I just don't. Who's the first caller? He was like this Russian sounding guy.
Sure, yeah. Might have probably was.
Like-
I think he was Russian. It would be my guess, or maybe not. Actually, I
Yeah,
shouldn't say that.
no,
You can speak Russian or be from some other country, but yeah.
He might have been Kazakhstani. Who knows?
Sure.
Who knows? But like, like I never see like a world where like this. Oh, like tying back to this entire conversation about like, geopolitical footing. Like Trump is just like, the worst person. Like if you're talking about like great man of history, like do we have like retarded man of history, like where he's just like doing the exact opposite, like he's just fucking everything up like by himself?
Sure. Yeah.
Like
I don't disagree. Obviously, yeah, I'm a huge Trump fucking hater. Actually, and that is actually the worst thing that I don't like about Trump is I feel like at the very least, like if he was more ideologically driven, like maybe he's moving the world in a direction that I don't like, but at least we're moving in a direction that is like at least somewhat beneficial to my country.
you can look at it concretely, but like it's so incoherent the direction he's moving in. Like I actually like think about it more. I think you're right. I think he's just self-interested and narcissistic. Because like there's no shot like where he can trade like Ukrainian land for like like minerals, and like if Bush did that, I feel like Bush would be like not okay. I'm not gonna Fed post, but like you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if you had a leak from any administration, which was a crazy leak, the phone call between two Russian people speaking. I think was this in Miami in the United States, or were they speaking overseas? I don't even know where the call originated from. But like that's an insane leak that would have involved some pretty high level intelligence that is probably burning sources, everything too. Like clearly there are people who are foreign policy minded who really don't like the direction that these talks were going. Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary where we're at. Like that would be an administration ending thing in any ordinary time, right?
I guess my whole thing is like geopolitics, because like I'm like in my third year of my degree. I might go to like to do my master's, but like just some context, like not knowing much about Trump like until recently, and just like doing like learning about like my like professor has like mental breakdowns in class because like how terrible Trump is for the West. I'm not even joking.
Sure.
Like he's like yelling and screaming, and just like learning just from like one lens how terrible he is. I can't even imagine from like if I took economics, or like I took like sociology, or like I took any other field, like I studied any other field, and I was just like, wow, this guy's terrible. But like he's terrible, like he's multi-paradigmatic, like he's terrible in every way.
Literally, yeah, in everything too. Even from like domestic politics, like watching, like when we talk about like the structure of our government, like forget even checks and balances between the legislature and the executive branch. Like you can see with these leaked talks, like even the executive branch is in disarray when you have the State Department on a totally separate negotiation track than the special envoy from the White House is like, yeah, what are we even doing right now? Yeah.
Okay. This is like, it's just terrible. I'm sorry. I'm Canadian. It's gonna affect me, but it's gonna affect you as bad as you know what I mean. Anyways,
Sure,
thank you so much. I'll DM you later. Is it okay if I send you a paper?
Yeah, go for it.
Not written by me, written by like an actual smart person. In regards to this like entire issue. But thank you so much.
Yeah, have fun. Be careful.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Fucking nerd. We just doing callers all day? What do you want, Dirt?
Hey, I have a question kind of about the male-female dynamic.
Okay.
What do you think about the proposals? Some people have suggested that boys should start kindergarten or school like a year later than girls. Redshirting, it's called.
I don't know. I would have to explore it more. My understanding is that like women, I think, develop or enter puberty a year or two faster or something, so they're like a year or two on track more. I don't know if that's like severe enough that there should be a difference in schooling over it, but I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I found an interesting article recent from New York Times about it. I posted in DGG chat, maybe if you're interested.
Sure. Wait. Did you say boys would enter school a year later or a year earlier?
A year later, so they would be a year older than the girls in their class.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's right, yeah, okay.
Yes, and would you, if the evidence bears out as beneficial for this, do you think you would support it like as a personal decision that parents can make?
Damn, I don't know. I feel like that something like this, I think, would have to be like enforced society-wide. But if it's just a year off, I don't know, it feels weird.
wait, you're more likely to support it for mandate.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, because like, wouldn't it be weird if people were allowed to just send their kid into school at whatever age they wanted? Isn't that kind of weird?
Interestingly, in the article they mentioned that like a lot of the big athletes, male athletes, often start school like a year late. So they like I think some parents that want their kids to become athletes intentionally do something like that already in some places.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, wouldn't you always be? Yeah, it feels like parents would just be choosing to send their kid into school not for what's the best for their educational outcomes, but with just whatever they think is best. Well, I guess what they would think is best for their outcomes. Should that decision be left to parents? I'm not sure. Maybe, I don't know. I would have to see the research. It depends. If it's like a clear cut, like this is definitely better, like one there's like inarguable, then I probably like, okay, yeah, fuck it, we should just do this. But if it's like kind of doesn't make a huge difference one way or another, and I probably wouldn't feel as strongly about it.
Yeah, in the article they cite some research. I haven't gone through all of it, but I think most of at least the research now suggests it might be beneficial. I don't know if it's a good enough margin, but I think it's an interesting idea, but I might also be biased because I did the opposite. I started school like a year early, and I think that also has like distortions that maybe should be looked at, because I think it kind of gave me a bit of a smart kid complex, the type,
Sure.
which later bit me in university.
Yeah, I know this because when you're in like honors and AP classes, you sometimes, depending on how advanced you are, all the kids in your class are like a year or two older than you, and they're in they're in the class ahead of you, so you don't have any friends, and it feels kind of weird. Also, everybody treats you differently, even though like it's the difference between like one age. But if you're a sophomore and you've got majority juniors in your class or upperclassmen, it's a different vibe. I don't know how much that plays into the education and everything, but like, yeah, I didn't have very many friends in those classes.
Yeah, and it also like people would always tell me, "Oh, you must be so smart to be 1 year younger or something like that." So you get like this. It kind of goes to your head, maybe as a child, that you're gifted, or the gifted like stereotype.
Sure.
That later you find out that there are much smarter people everywhere.
Sure. Well, not in my case, but I know what you mean. Yeah, for the average person.
Sure. Yeah, so might be a good read. It's not like a long article. It's like 5 minutes.
Okay.
And might be like something that is one of the solutions that we start to see for this problem. What
Okay.
happened? Oh, Mr. Moton joined.
Yeah, I got my food.
Loser.
Mr. Moton, what do you think about
He doesn't think.
boys starting school 1 year later than girls?
What? Does that happen, or is this a? Do you want this to happen?
It's a hypothetical, idiot.
It's proposed, like some researchers and educators are proposing.
Since girls
I don't know.
develop
If girls are
faster.
further ahead, then yeah, fuck it.
Exactly.
What do you think the effect will be on girls, though? Like, do you think maybe it gives them like 1 more year, a year head start compared to men? So they usually like lose like a couple of years, or 3 or 5 years, depending how long they take care of the child later in life. So maybe getting a head start earlier in life for women is also beneficial in
True.
other ways.
True.
So it might be a win-win.
Should the age of consent be different for men and women then?
Jesus Christ, Moon. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Just asking questions.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks for the time.
Mm-hmm.
See you guys later.
Be careful.
Did
Bye-bye.
you?
What do you want?
Well, just when you're thinking about like, well, he already left, but when you're also thinking about like, should boys start later? I also have to consider that women are already mature faster than boys, right? So they would be
That's the whole reason
would.
why he would consider it, right? That was the whole
But,
point.
but like also even just interpersonally, like how would that affect, like how that, like just interpersonal relationships between boys and girls, like would.
Well, the idea is it would improve them because now boys have an extra year to develop.
Yeah, sure, but also just like I don't know. There's like a difference even like in high school, depending on where you're dating people and a year older than you and stuff like that.
Yeah. Wait, I don't understand. The point is that it would be helpful, right?
Well, that's also just a factor.
What would the fact? Yeah, but
besides just educational outcomes, there are other.
Yeah, but the
social
factor is that
outcomes
this would be a factor that would help. This is what it was trying to alleviate, right? Because it would give boys one
I thought it
extra
was
year.
mostly the educational factors. No.
No, I thought it was just like developmental factors. Like girls
Pretty straightforward.
develop a little bit quicker than boys do, so it would put them on a more even footing to start boys a year later or something,
Maybe.
or a year earlier, or a year
Sure,
later.
sure. I didn't even. I thought it was just the educational thing, but yeah, sure.
Sounds
Just
like you
got
needed
owned.
to be a year later, earlier. Got
Yeah,
him.
maybe you need to be a year later.
Yeah, maybe you do.
Maybe.
Got him.
I'll think about that next time I become a 5-year-old. Also, just because I saw retards in chat saying it whenever
Good
was
one,
brought up.
Steve.
if you don't think gifted kid syndrome exists, you're retarded,
Damn.
and you are not a gifted kid.
Damn. Got him. You got him.
All right, let me vet one of these guys, Steve.
Okay. Who are you vetting?
9 Lion, what do you want to talk about? 5.
Bruh.
Hello?
4. Yep, you're on. What do you want to talk about?
So I have a point about pardons.
Ooh, okay, I'm interested.
Oh,
Even your position on like how we charge people because they, if Trump preemptively pardons a whole bunch of members of his administration and his cabinet, that you can use that to apply the 14th Amendment to basically get them ineligible for office, correct?
Hell yeah.
So that doesn't, I mean, it could work in some instances, but that runs into some roadblocks when you like factor in how a pardon actually operates, right? A pardon, Trump will sign a document, or Biden or whoever signs a document and says, I pardon this person. But how it actually applied is that if a court case gets brought against you, then you basically, if there's a you're charged with something, you pull out your pardon and you say, actually, Judge, this should be dismissed. Here's the pardon, right? Like this was published and authored by the president on this day. And so please dismiss the case. Now, you don't have to actually do that. You can still opt to go forward with your case regardless and say, you know what, I got pardoned for this, but I didn't do it. I'm innocent, so I'm going to fight it anyway.
Yeah.
And so just merely the fact that Trump may pardon someone doesn't mean that Republicans will
Well,
automatically...
doesn't that revoke the pardon then?
It doesn't revoke it, but you don't have to accept a pardon.
Got it.
And you
Yeah,
could,
you don't have to accept it. And so
But
then,
then
by
they
not
would have to
accepting it,
roll
right,
the dice on that being adjudicated then, no? Which I imagine.
Yeah, but then that means that, like, one, you have to go through every single instance and be able to prove that they are involved with insurrection in some capacity, which I think is going to be a hard hill, especially when who's in the Supreme Court, right? Like, not exactly friendly to that instance. And so I don't think that that's a viable option. If
Well,
only
it would
because,
be
like,
it would be you only need to get one of them for at least for the 14th Amendment to apply, right? Because for the 14th Amendment, they say that it's for if you aid and abet anybody engaged in insurrection. So if you get one of them adjudicated or convicted of an insurrection-like thing, then at that point you just have to show for the other people that they aided or abetted, which is a much
wouldn't you have to
easier
show
road.
that they're aiding and abetting in the insurrection, not that just they're aiding and abetting in, like, or that they're a part of a current administration, right? The current administration obviously is an insurrection.
Sure, but I mean, like that's a very broad thing. I think the example given in the paper that I read on this was that, like, in the Civil War, like a guy had like given his son money to travel south to go fight for the Confederates, and that guy had been considered as aiding and abetting because of that. And that was a pretty removed thing. So I mean, I feel like that would be pretty easy.
Yeah, but like if we don't have anything for Marco Rubio right now, like I don't think that he was involved in any of the J6 plot. I didn't see him involved in any of the elector schemes or anything. I haven't seen him involved.
Then maybe
anywhere in that
Marco
capacity.
Rubio would be clear then.
Right, but then like the question is how of the people who you think are currently like doing some off, like Pam Bondi wouldn't apply to any of that because she wasn't involved in the administration.
She would.
before.
Fuck her. I'd make some way to find out. Hell yeah.
Well, I agree. Like she's awful, and she's doing awful things to the country. But
Why don't she circumvent the rule of law? Look
like,
at this fucking Lindsay Halligan bullshit. She knows this is bullshit.
Yeah, they know that's bullshit, and because they retroactively went through that. Do you know much about the dismissal on that?
Yep. I know everything there is to know about it.
You
Every single
read the
thing.
full opinion,
I read
okay.
every paper and every other opinion and all of everything. Yes.
Every paper.
I'm an
Okay,
expert
sure,
on
sure.
it. Why? What about it?
Well, I had been following that docket pretty closely.
Oh shit. Okay.
so-
Well,
If you had any questions, okay, but obviously you're an expert on it, and
True.
you're, as we know, you're an expert of federal legal procedure.
exactly.
So
Yes.
He knows all the legal procedure.
Everything.
He knows all the legal procedure. I bet he would be able to properly file an exhibit in conventional format with the court, right?
Yep. I drive down with my
True.
USB drive and I'd go and do everything I need to do.
That's
The
literally all you have to do. It is that easy.
one thing that I think is very annoying that is supposedly this is supposed to be a rule somewhere of federal. I don't remember what it is. The rule 11. I don't remember. But like you're supposed to do things that you know you can do, right? Like you. Well, now this is just applying maybe necessarily to civil court actions or whatever, but like you can't act in bad faith. Like that's not the goal of a litigator. You can't do things that you know are against the rule in the hopes that they work. So when I see the Trump administration engaging in all this shenaniganery, there have to be some kind of legal consequences for it. Like just on its face, like Bondi suggesting that you can infinitely rotate out your own hand-picked appointees for prosecutors with no Senate oversight, as long as you keep doing it on that rolling, is it 120 days or 90 days?
120 days.
Yeah,
basis,
that's
120.
on its face, like that's a fucking retarded argument. Like that's like
Or the idea that you could retroactively ratify the actions of her, because afterwards, like in October, they're like, oh, and I also appoint her special prosecutor under this statute.
Oh,
and,
yeah, because now
prosecutor under
you've
this
been caught,
and then
yeah.
and that was the whole time, and so let's make sure that apply the whole time,
Yeah,
right?
bullshit.
Like
It
that,
day
like,
before,
that
yeah.
is stupid.
Yeah. Well, not just stupid too. I'm trying to use that word less because it's not really stupid. It's like intentionally bad faith, right? Like she knows that this is a ridiculous pretense,
And
right?
in a way that like you can't convey to like the average person.
Yeah, but we don't need to. We've got
of,
courts and
'cause they'll
judges
go
for
like,
this.
oh,
Fuck the
isn't
average
that, like
person.
what every administration does is like they go and they play with like the word and like they finally like this isn't legalese. This isn't like, oh, there's a plausible reading of the statute, but that really goes against the rest of it. It's like this is like an intentional gamesmanship.
Yeah.
To like
criminal.
or unseen, right?
But also, I think you can explain this to the average person. I think that we just don't even try. Like, I think that the Republicans are pretty good at conveying relatively sophisticated conspiracies to the public because they really try. They put a lot of effort into figuring out how to do it. We just don't even try.
I think I agree that this could be conveyed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if someone made like a great Jan 6 video, we could convey that whole thing. But
Like, think about how speaking of Jan 6, think about like how convoluted their election fraud schemes were. The ones that they were accusing the Democrats of doing, right? That like they were rigging ballots that couldn't be caught by a recount because they were making fraudulent submissions when the envelope had a different address and when the chain of custody was broken because the envelope was separated from the. It's like Jesus Christ, like that's a relatively convoluted accusation. But like a lot of Republicans are like, oh sure, I guess, yeah, seems right. I just think it's because they put effort into it. I think if we put effort into informing the public of certain things, I think we could do it.
But it is a thing that we need to convince like people who are agreeable to our position that what's happening is wrong and crazy, or that like we need to get the majority of Americans to agree that this is wrong and crazy, right? Because I think the hard part is even if you're able to get that popular message out there, they're like, whoa, this is actually way over the line. Like for a lot of like Republicans or MAGA people, if Fox News goes and says like, well, actually no, this is perfectly fine because of whatever point, and like this is she's acting perfectly capable, they'll get that message. And they'll go, oh, this is very comfortable, and it'll just turn into like, well, it's just polarization.
Then I think you have to. I think people need to get more comfortable fighting back on their beliefs. Like this is a thing that I keep running into over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, where people are like, oh no, like it's not politically popular. It's not politically popular. Like the Democratic Party and all these people, Wick and everybody else, I love them all, okay, but the Democratic Party views the Overton window or like what the American public is willing to accept they view that as a constraint on all of their actions, but conservatives view it as like a springboard, right? Like if they're okay right now with this idea, we can springboard off this and do something even crazier. Whereas for the Democratic Party, it's like, okay, well, they're only okay with this. We have to operate within these strictly defined margins. And then as a result of that, we're always playing catch up to the Republican lunacy, you know? Like if I were to say today, like, because people are saying that my 14th Amendment idea is like crazy and not possible, whatever. What if I was a Republican? We're having the same conversation. I was like, what if we try to say that like all of Biden's pardons were invalid just because of like an auto signing thing that I have literally zero proof for of its existence?
Yeah.
You're like, up to this point, there is absolutely zero proof. There is no proof anywhere ever. In fact, like a lot of Republican
There's evidence
conspiracies,
to the contrary.
To the contrary, that Trump used an auto signer and they had to invalidate and re-sign some or whatever. So like, it's just like. And also, by the way, I hate even giving this framing. Even if there is an auto pen, it doesn't matter. Like, let's say Biden's like, yeah, we can sign these or whatever. Like, I'll do this for because what they're really trying to imply is that not only did he not sign it, but it wasn't even his idea. That some other sneaky people.
He didn't make the decision, or he
Exactly.
didn't agree to it, or
Yeah.
like he knew nothing about it because he's a zombie walking in the deep state. Yada yada yada. Exactly. Yeah.
Or look at how complicated the Hunter Biden conspiracy was. Hunter Biden worked for a foreign operative organization, Burisma, where he was getting bribes, and his father was able to influence the Ukrainian prosecutorial board to dismiss a case. And we know this because of a laptop that was found from a blind dude's repair shop. Like, that's a really intricate conspiracy theory, but they all believe it. So like, it's because they try it. Yeah.
It's really intricate, but I think the issue you might run into is that like how many Republicans actually know like all of the steps. So you might, people who like you debate or end up like coming on a show to challenge you on it. Sure, they know, but like actually when you like, at least my experience, like going out and like whenever I'd hear someone bring up one of those points and say like, do you actually know about this? Do you know what Burisma is? And they're like, oh, I actually don't know a whole lot about that.
Sure.
It's like heard,
but they know that, but
that's
that's okay because they know the talking points, and that's all you really need, right? Like when I did, when I had that conversation with, was it Tectone or whatever, who's like an apolitical guy who doesn't follow much politics. Like I believe him when he says that, but he knew all the defenses for bringing back manufacturing for the tariffs, and it's going to help us like not be taken advantage. Like he knew all those talking points. But if I would ask him to explain, do you even know what a tariff is? I don't know if I could fucking explain it. So
That's Dan's best friend.
Yeah, so I feel like it's possible to communicate these things. We just give up immediately if we feel like people don't already intuitively have a grasp on it. Whereas Republicans seek to educate and inform and turn people to their crazy lunatic side. On our side, we're like, oh fuck, it's lost. It's literally impossible to do this, and we just because we don't even try.
Sure, but then the question is like, what do you do about that problem?
We try.
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 I think
Also,
that,
like
like
the other day, the conversation about like impeaching senators and shit. That's also why that was important, because like you were saying before, like if you can't get them on the insurrection thing, which might be possible, like Marco Rubio maybe wasn't involved with that shit. Like the avenue you have to go through is impeach and then bar them from office again, which you can do in impeachment.
We've given
if
up.
Nobody's talking about that then.
Yeah, and we've given up on like easy stuff. Like even all the liberals today in Snopes or whatever all repeat the lie that when Trump said there were good people on both sides, he wasn't referring to Nazis there. That's actually taken up. No, that's bullshit. He was referring to the march the night before that were all Nazis.
to the tiki torch, like Jews will not replace us. Like those people.
Yeah. But even I'm pretty sure if you look at even Snopes now, all the liberal media is like, oh yeah, guys, that was a big fuck up by us. We fucked up. Like no, it wasn't. Or look at how many liberals gave up the whole Russiagate argument. They're like, oh yeah, the whole Russiagate, all of that was, I guess, not true. What? You mean the guy he literally fired Comey to stop the investigation into that? He literally obstructed this and begged Jeff Sessions. He begged multiple people to kill the investigation into that at multiple points. People like Manafort were indicted and convicted and had to give tens of millions of dollars, whatever, back because of all the stolen Russian money and everything. What do you mean Russiagate was bullshit? Or the Tower meeting, right? That nobody even knows happened, where they literally lied about meeting some fucking Russian attorney to get dirt on Hillary Clinton, and they lied about it initially, but then one of them was like, oh yeah, we did do that. Like, yeah, it's just crazy. Like liberals, even on the easy wins, liberals just give it all up. Like, okay, yeah, fuck, we were wrong on this, guys. We gotta find stuff that's more palatable to talk to the public about. It's like, okay.
The TDS is real.
I agree with you there. But my point is just that like the actual mechanics of implementing the ability to like disqualify these people from office is probably a lot harder. So like to the extent that you want the president to personally spearhead a investigation, as we obviously all know from your positions, the mechanics of that wouldn't be viable.
Yeah, but like, what were the mechanics of? Are you pretty familiar with the 14th Amendment thing?
Yeah.
What were the mechanics of that? They basically had to kill the Section 3 of the amendment, and they added some weird qualifier that
I absolutely agree. That's
crazy.
That's my big bugbear. It's like there's nowhere, and they would know how to write like a in that amendment that like anyone who like is convicted of treason.
Yeah,
But
of
they didn't.
course.
They
And
just
then,
said
and
enact,
the idea
treason.
that some amendment is not self-actualizing, like you can find, or self-executing, I'm sorry, and self-actualizing was our constitutional living document that always believes in itself. But like the idea that like, yeah, well, if they don't put a thing in here, then we don't know if it's actually law or not. Like what? That is just, it was like unbelievable. Or look at like, how do we get Trump out of all these like criminal convictions? What's the mechanic for that? Well, what if we say that the president actually can't be charged with crimes while he's president? Like these are very difficult things to do, but they did it. Like,
well, yeah, but like then we need the Supreme Court, right? And like, I think the only hope that we have of winning back the Supreme Court is that Alito and Thomas are actually too goddamn stubborn for the conservatives' own good, and they end up not resigning within the next year before.
Well, that's also why
midterms.
the conversation, whenever this conversation comes up, it also has to like it encompasses so many things, because you can't just talk about just the one thing. It can't just be, charge them all with insurrection and bar them from office. You also have to talk about Supreme Court reform, including maybe packing the court in order to get around it. Because, like you said, maybe if Alito and Thomas or whatever, but you would also just kind of like, you need to just put justices on, and that would solve the issue, right? But if you're not going to do it, then
yeah,
exactly. But
All right.
I unfortunately, like, here's the interesting thing to me about the Supreme Court, especially, is that like if you better know that if like they're like when Breyer was on the court, right? Everyone was talking about like, well, he's going to resign right before the midterms, and like that was within. If it was Thomas and Alito were liberals, you would have like on the New York Times, like they'd just be talking about like, are they going to resign? They need to resign now. But you don't hear a peep about that coming from the Republicans at the moment. And I don't think that's because they aren't focused on it. I think that like it's probably because that conversation is probably happening within the Federalist Society and like the conservative legal judicial movement, because they're the ones like actually focus on that.
yeah, of course.
But like it's interesting how all of the liberal issues get fleshed out in front of the public and like on the square, whereas there's kind of like the marching orders that get sent down to all conservatives of like, here's what we need to do, and they're much more in lockstep. What you do about that is a hard problem, other than like excising the like super like wokies who end up just hamstringing our movement. I don't know what you do.
we just need to be more on point with our messaging, like get people more coordinated and stand together with the party and put out a stronger positive message rather than just it being reactionary to whatever Trump is doing. Like we've been doing a better job at controlling news cycles recently. I think we're doing a lot better job. Like I actually like, even though it might be rough and we have to navigate, once we have control of the media, we have to navigate it accordingly. But like I actually like the fact that right now there's this fixation on the, what do they call them? The seditious six or whatever. Like the fact that they made that video and the fact that they are focused on that point of the messaging, that it was their fault, like means that I think I have a peers thing coming up on Monday. Oh boy. Like my whole argument the whole time is going to be, they said you can ignore unlawful orders. Like, why is that a problem? Like, what's the issue with that? Right? Like, how are we so soyed the fuck out that when somebody says you have to ignore unlawful orders?
But Destiny, liberals are up in arms about Trump saying that this is treason. Do you think that this is like, this is going to be deflection, right? Like the point of that should be what we focus on, but like there is no ability to focus on that if the other side like also doesn't seem to focus on it. Like we don't have the ability to like focus attention in that manner.
Well, no,
right?
we do. The only reason why we lose it sometimes because the other side knows that they can bait us. If people know that they can get a reaction out of you, then they'll constantly try to get a reaction. But if they don't think they can anymore, then they'll just stop trying it.
Yeah, but it seems like it's such a broad change that we need among
It is a broad
the,
change. I do agree with that. Yeah.
Right, like, and I just feel like, damn, are we just gonna have like too many outraged millennial women to like who pull us off course? Right, like, is it that we're just gonna be like too divided and it'll have too big of a tent of like people
well,
that
we need
includes
to
people
we need
who
to
end up throwing us off?
I think it is important. There's a whole other thing that is maybe going to be difficult, but like we have to get rid of the elements of the party that don't support the party. We need to come to some realization that it just can't carry on where we have members of our party that don't support voting for the party. So the tanky's got to go. And the
yeah,
thing
but how
is,
do you actually convince like the mainstream party to do that?
I think the mainstream party would welcome it. They just have to feel like they have support from other people in the party to do it. I think
they don't need those people.
Yeah, they're deathly afraid, and they don't even have them anyway. But they're deathly afraid of doing anything that might be even perceived as unpopular. But if they feel like they had more support for it, because like the Democratic Party doesn't like all these people. Like I feel like every time there's been like a major policy fight involving these people, like the Democratic establishment and the politicians have always gotten ass painted over it. Like over the BLM stuff, how many people were complaining? It's like this BLM stuff fucking wrecked us in our midterms. Like we got so ruined on this shit, or in the election, like we got so ruined on a lot of this stuff, and there was nothing that we could say or do to push back against it. Like I think if they feel like they just need to feel like they have more support from other parts of the establishment, like the media, the alternative media, some political leaders. Like I
suppose maybe to that end, and maybe this is something for like, maybe this would be a cool thing for like Unfuck America to be doing. It was like when you have some, House member or senator who's in like a purple area, or who's like, being more moderate, and they get like threatened from like progressives of like, we're going to primary him and like, get him out. Like if you had like another force to say like, we're going to counter like the people who are like, oh, we're going to primary you because you didn't like force the vote, right? Like if we had like another force that was like, okay, when we have like that clarion call and like that threat, someone needs to actually answer that in the primaries and say like, actually we're going to then support you in the primaries because this needs to be exercised.
A little bit, yeah, but we
going door to door.
I think we have to be careful in terms of, because we can't be fighting everybody. We don't do that, but like it would just be so much easier if these people were treated as a third party. Like they really operate anyway, instead of just they're not part. Like when you say primary us, like you're not even part of our party, right? And they aren't. And I think if they were treated as such and viewed as such, I think it would be easier to deal with them, because then it wouldn't feel like you're getting attacked by your own all the time. One thing that I'm super emboldened by is I think Mamdani has spoken amazingly when it comes to supporting different elements within the Democratic Party. His statement that like, because I think people were trying to make statements, it was with him and I think with somebody else of like, oh, like, is everybody going to become like you or whatever? And I think it was Mamdani that was like, hey, I'm a good person to run for mayor of New York City, and other people might be good to run for, for the governor in Virginia, for the governor in New Jersey, whatever the fuck else. Like, oh, you're the different candidates for different areas. And that's a really positive message that you have never heard from progressives before. So if people follow suit
just
for him,
wait until Mamdani isn't able to like actually enact all of his things, and he'll be discarded by the progressives and no longer seen as progressive.
That's fine, but he'll be discarded by the progressives that we never wanted anyway, right? The tankies, and those are the people we do like. Yeah, we do want to get rid of some people. We don't need these people. They don't support the Democratic Party, and they won't support Democratic politicians. They only want.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing is that they have like such an influence over people who it's not just them themselves of like people who are in like that specific network, but like the like one step removed of like people who they're like are friends with or have that social influence over. Right, like, and that like makes up a portion that might be very hard to lose, right? Or that they still can like have some kind of control over.
Well, we got to do it. Like the MAGA,
I agree,
MAGA
like,
literally just bled off Marjorie Taylor fucking Greene. Okay, we can bleed off the tankies that don't even fucking vote anyway. We have to be able to do this.
I don't know if I would agree with that interpretation of what Greene was doing, but
what do you mean?
I take your point.
She doesn't support the president anymore, no?
Well, yeah, but because she sees, it's, I think, partly because like things were she was wanting to run for the Georgia Senate seat, right? And I think it's partly why you see her like moderating now, and why she's like trying to project this image that she's come to the light. She hasn't. She's still crazy, and the fact that she's a very smart woman. I don't think when she was making those QAnon claims and like pushing that, is because she believed it. I think she was doing because it was politically advantageous to her, right?
I don't know about that. I think she was. I think she did believe that, because I think she was posting something. Wasn't she posting this shit on her personal fucking Facebook post before she ever even ran for office? Wasn't that what people were digging up? Or am I misremembering this?
Yeah, right. And like talking about like crazy shit. But I don't know if you talk about that crazy shit. I don't see someone who like is able to fall for all that crazy shit as being as politically cunning and conniving as she is, right? She's
people believe some retarded shit sometimes. But I get your point. But like Trump was willing to break it off, and now the Republican Party has been willing to kind of break it off with MTG. That's in my opinion, that's a very hard loss. So like if they're willing to do that, we should be able to bleed off tankies that don't represent the party and don't even fucking vote on it.
Well, I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's getting out while the going's good to get a little bit of distance between her and because she's like the embodiment of MAGA, right? Yeah. When you think of MAGA, you think of Greene. Yeah. And she needs a little bit of distance from that and like her own political position to actually run for that Georgia Senate seat and basically do the ground game. So one, she can win the primary, and then two, she can hopefully win the general election. But like I wouldn't. She got into a fight with Trump over that because he wouldn't endorse her. silver, and that's where you have like the Madrid's hair brown because green grass
he
gets
explained
cut
this
and
joke
turns raw.
every
Like,
fucking
just
time.
like some of the stupidest
Cringe.
shit. I'm so glad that he just posts onto Truth Social like his thoughts on some things. It's very insightful. But like, that's kind of that's where I see that conflict coming from. It's like a primary political fight among Trump and her over the Georgia stuff, and then she wants to get a little bit distance because she doesn't want to be like have him like being a
She doesn't want to be
marionette
toxic,
over her.
which Trump is probably going to be pretty toxic in the midterms, I imagine, coming up. Yeah.
Well, it's hugely toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and the concerning thing is that like, if I were a Republican in the House right now, I would be thinking, what are we going to do to actually like stay in my seat that we flipped from a blue district to a red district? What are we going to do here? Because right now everyone is super mad about the ICE stuff. They're super mad about tariffs and cost of living. And I don't, we need to do something, but I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to like push for a vote to like
Because Trump will
reverse the
destroy you.
tariff decision.
That's why I'm saying. I
Because
said this
Trump will
before. Is
destroy
that
you.
like it's going to be an all at once. Like eventually the wind is going to start to blow in a different direction, and I think you're going to see a large fall off of people because you can't really do this one or two at a time unless you're retiring. Because you're going to
The
get hunted
reporting is
by.
that there's going to be more.
Yeah, I've heard that. We're waiting to see it though. I feel like the longer it takes, the less likely it is that any of this is actually going to happen. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the. It'd be tough to be a MAGA right now. I will give them that. It would be a very tough position to be in. I would be worried, but they don't seem as worried as I would be in their position. So
Who is they?
MAGA people or
Like the voters
they're
or
in
the
power.
politicians? I think the politicians. I feel like they're very worried. They might not be being public about it, but they know that like there's a time limit and they have no.
Or maybe
end
more,
game.
I'm thinking of like more of like the intellectuals, like whoever the Ezra Klein of the
They
right
have
is.
no.
Especially when you have
they
like
have
the
their
Fuentes
intellectuals are
situation.
Peter Thiel
Alex
and
Jones?
fucking and Mark Andreessen. These guys are the most retarded fucking people in the fucking universe. They have no coherent political
Yeah, but there has to be like
ideologies.
some.
it's mostly-
There are some people who have like some political sense on the Republican side, right?
They are,
Like,
but they don't have
sleepwalking into
they
it.
don't have political power, right? Like JD, in my opinion, although people say I'm wrong on this, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. I don't think like the JD Vance, like these guys, I don't think they have political power at all. So their intellectuals are the people on fucking social media or whatever, and the Bannons or whatever that just don't represent much political power in the yeah.
I mean, I think that Vance has like political power insofar as he has a close line to the president, right? And like he can like whisper things into Trump's ear.
I
and
believe
then get
that,
Trump
but I'm
to
saying, but I'm looking
sign
at
off on
like
them.
midterms and then beyond.
But the broader
right?
power, yes, I would
Yeah.
agree with
because
you.
after
right?
midterms,
That
things are
Vance
going to
is
get
lacking.
really weird because now you definitely you're not running on a Trump ticket next time. And the Trump voters, I think historically,
You say that.
Wow, true. The Trump voters historically seem like some of the worst fucking down ballot supporters ever. Like they don't show up for fucking special elections and they suck at voting down ballot because they don't even like the Republican Party. So like, I don't know like post midterms, I don't know what the Republican Party is going to look like at all, or where the leaders, like the politically elected, the political class, I don't know where they're going to be on anything. You know?
God, what's going to suck is when in 2028 we end up, for like stupid reasons, nominating like a super like socialist. Someone's like, oh my gosh, we need to do what Mondami is doing, and that's going to be the way forward.
No, that won't.
And then we win only because like that like dearth in
Oh,
Trump
because the Republican
support,
side is going to
and
be
that,
so
like,
stupid.
apathy.
They're going to do like a Sarah
And then we're
Palin
gonna be
moment.
like stuck on that for like the next like 12 years of like, oh, we just didn't do it hard enough, or like we need to try more, right? Like if that comes out to be like the world that we live in, I'm going to be upset.
I don't think that'll happen. Hopefully.
No shit.
We don't hope that doesn't happen. So, rip Mooten.
Loser. Wooten's always had a problem with being a big fucking loser, I think.
True.
Fuck him. Just kidding.
Did you did the depositions go forward on the 24th and 25th?
Nope. We're waiting for the judge to make
No?
rulings on stuff, so who knows what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Oh, because there wasn't a ruling. Oh, didn't he? I thought. No. That was an expedited order for the briefing.
The reality is the other side doesn't really,
Yeah.
they don't want to do depositions. It's all a game to them because nothing
Yeah,
good
they
is every single time they open their
They
mouth.
won't get anything good out of a deposition.
Yeah,
no.
and they're just getting killed on any evidentiary thing ever. They're getting slaughtered because they have no evidence for anything, and every new piece of information that comes out just hurts them more and more. So they're probably happy pushing this off as long as possible, with the goal maybe of getting, hopefully not, but getting the discovery extended, which I don't know if that automatically pushes back the trial date or not, but
It shouldn't have to.
I don't think so. Isn't the trial set for like
June or May next year?
March?
No way.
Oh, May. Oh,
It's
then
May or
yeah,
June.
yeah.
I'd have to check what the scheduling order on that is. I'm not familiar with your scheduling order, so
Good. I don't want you to be.
okay, all right, I see how it is.
I am. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, obviously you are because you're showing up and you're the one rooting fan.
Ooh,
Okay, you're
dick rider.
keeping things open.
Got him.
Appreciate that, Zip Zip. Good for you.
Yeah, I got you on that one. Don't even worry.
But for you, you know that transcript might have been sealed, and we never would have gotten some juicy secrets. So. Anyway, I feel for you with all the court stuff because having followed it for one, just by looking, this is stupid, but like just by looking at their filings, just like how it's formatted, I was like, this. What is this law firm? This is like a
Did you see-
shoestring.
Did you see on the last filing that they did? Like they put on the date formats like February 27, for example, and then they on the next sentence it's February 27th, and on the next one it's like, bro, like I can't do it. And then
Yeah,
on the
it's
other
just- it's
line,
inconsistent.
27th,
They
and
don't-
it's like super scripted, and it's like, what are you?
I think
I'm pretty sure.
I really do feel like, and I hope this comes up after Discovery's over, I think they're using AI to format stuff or to even do
That's the
research.
only way it becomes that way.
Because because there's that fucking quote when they try to quote the local rules, like it was like 7.4 or 7.1
Yeah, the quote
subsection
isn't
4b.
anywhere. I tried looking
Yeah, the
for it
quote
too.
doesn't exist anywhere, and she doesn't understand the rule. She's like, and the rule is written like very plainly obvious if you just read it in English. I'm pretty sure she's using AI for research, which might be then that might partially explain why she's willing the opposing counsel to waste so much time on this is because it's not actually taking much time. She's just formatting shit with AI and then shipping it to the court.
Radiant moment.
True.
Yeah, I don't know what the end game is for them. Like,
Just to draw it out, waste my money. And then my guess is they're gonna dismiss the case when like at the last minute. It would be my guess, but maybe not. I don't know. I'd be really shocked.
but
if
like, is that?
And then they'll say
do you
it's
think
got,
that that's
it's
like
on a
the-
technicality, and that's it. Right.
Do you think that's like the express understanding between Pixie and her lawyers, or do you think that's the like that like Pixie's lawyers have like told her like, okay, well, we aren't going to be able to win this anymore, but Pixie's like, fuck it, go for it anyway.
Yes, I don't care what the excuses or whatever. She's literally in law school right now. She's an adult. She can read her own fucking filings. Like, there's no excuse for her to be totally fucking clueless about what her law firm is doing. So, yeah. I would never accept the excuse that like, oh, she just has no clue and her lawyers are doing this without any part of her, input. Yeah.
Sure, but just like she is. My question would be like, she might know that, but like, do you think there's been like express conversation of that?
Of drawing it out as
between
much
her
as
and the law
possible?
firm?
Absolutely, I think so. Yeah, for sure.
I would think so too. Like, these are like evil, like lawyers not living up to their ethical obligations, right?
Yep. I would say.
Well,
Even
you know,
though that,
maybe
like people
Smith-
talk about how lawyers are like bloodthirsty or bloodsucking and they want to get money or whatever. Like, I will say that in the beginning of my case, like the advice I was given was that it would be much cheaper to just settle, even for like a big 6-figure amount. And I was kind of encouraged to do so. And I was like, hell no, fuck no.
Yeah, you got the standard lawyer advice.
Fuck no,
That's how it
homie.
goes.
We're fucking going all the way on this shit. Fuck that. But I don't feel like I've been like
Well, I mean,
ripped
like,
off.
I think
or
in
anything from
your, I think for your purposes, like anything but like a dismissal of the case, right? Any kind of settlement would have been like celebrated by the Kiwi Farms and by like that anti-fan community, right? And would have cost you, would have been able to perpetuate that as like for like, oh, he had to settle. Right?
Yeah, that would be my. The problem is that once, really, she ruined her life once she made that Substack post. At that point, it was like done. Because now any settlement that we do, it would have required for me to even be willing to entertain the idea. I would need a
Retract it and correct the
massive
lies.
retraction on things that she said, and I don't think her ego could take it. So
Why? So just in your reading of her, like in the between the like the leaks and then her, even just deciding to like start moving forward with the Substack stuff, why do you think she made that decision? Right? Like that's to me is the most mind-boggling thing. Of like, was it because like she had it all out there? She had like saw an opportunity to get it back. Like I just don't know where that comes from.
I think most of the emotional pain came from the fact that it was just humiliating that she got outed as banging streamers, basically. I think she really didn't like that. And then I think that the legal idea and everything, 100 million% came from Lauren De Laguna, who got to like do an awesome double whammy and that like she's a MAGA conservative, so this is an opportunity to take out like a left-leaning person, and she had a massive and deep personal hatred of me, and so she got to double up on that. I mean, if you look at the fact that, like, I remember Lauren even said prior to, like, when we were friends a long time ago, she was like, oh yeah, like in the LawTube community, like we're all suing each other all the time, ha ha ha, like she made it sound like a joke. I was like, oh, maybe they do that. But now looking at the fact that Pixie's wife, that she tries to hide all the time and doesn't show up with anything with because she did a fake marriage with her to get her citizenship, the fact that her wife is literally suing another company for sexual harassment, her last employer that she worked with for like 4 months or whatever, like, okay, this probably came from Lauren too. I think Lauren just like encourages all of her friends around her to do lawsuits all the time because she thinks it's fucking epic.
Lauren was the one who, like, you had posted the video of her giving like the speech to that constitutional thing in whatever person's house, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, do you know, is Lauren like homeschooled?
I don't know if she was or not. I'm not sure. Wouldn't surprise me actually.
Just like, I don't know, just like looking at the video and like, you know, that she's described as like a law student there, but just I just got like a reek of like homeschooledness, and I feel like that would go a ways to explain like some of the behavior and whatnot.
Possibly.
But
And now you say that.
I mean, I just like, especially just like go back and if you go back and look at that video and just like look at her and like in that situation, like just like if you put together homeschooled in like a conservative household, it all clicks together, right?
Sure.
You know, she can be very smart, but then it explains like the maybe lack of like social intuition. So
maybe.
Anyway, interesting thing to potentially be dug into. If only we had a whole bunch of people who would dig up stuff on Kiwi
Chill.
Farms.
Just kidding. Nope, we wouldn't want that, and we wouldn't support
Christ,
that.
dude,
No, that's
why?
going to the next filing. Way to go.
Yeah. Well,
It's over.
hey, Joan.
Yeah, you get to say hi to her now too. Yay.
Wait, why do I have a 0% chance to entice this guy?
He's uninterested.
Skill issue.
What? Why can't I? Hello? Is it like a Zodiac thing or?
Ted Cruz?
What?
What?
You cannot talk to animals as another class. What? Okay, good one. Well, someone gives you money, you don't read their message. Fuck, what was it? What was the dono message? Yo, Destiny, I'm one of the people from the end of the WIC panel. Can you elaborate more on your position about MAGA consequences? Yeah, I just think that if they're in office right now and they're a supporter of Trump, they shouldn't be allowed to hold office again, okay? That's what I would say. Okay, hold on. We have Hassan
Simple as.
Slop. What is this? Am I doing this correctly? Hold on. There we go. All right, hold on. Good luck.
There were drug dealings among the frat brothers, there was hazing, and there were these so-called creep shots where women had pictures taken of them, and then the guys would, you know, make fun of the way they looked, talk about how fat they were, all of that.
And then, of course, they also put up nude pictures.
Yeah, so they put up nude pictures of various girls. I don't know if they were sleeping with the girls. I don't know if the girls just happened to send them the nude pictures. But in one of the posts, one of the frat brothers indicates that the girl took the picture when she was 17, which is why we're not going to show it to you. Now, with that said, we have our bro tip correspondent here, our fraternity correspondent, and he will weigh in on this issue.
He's an expert in the field.
Yeah, we don't do that at all, though, at my fraternity.
No, of course not.
Never.
No, never. Okay. All right. So I'm to assume that these guys
Epic-based, okay.
were idiots for getting caught, but in reality, they represent 98% of what's happening on fraternities. Correct or incorrect?
Not just fraternities, but college in general. I mean, come on. How many, like, there's got to be moments in your life where even you've shown, like, naked pictures of a friend or something to another.
That's quite an accusation, Cenk. How do you reply to that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
I don't
look,
know.
back in the day, we didn't even have iPhones. Back when I was getting laid.
Well, yeah. Well, that's a totally normal thing, though. That happens.
It's a totally normal thing. No, but the thing is, I think bro tip is right. I'm very amused by calling him bro tip. I think it is very common, and especially with Snapchat, etc.
I mean, come on. How many, like, there's got to be moments in your life where even you've shown, like, naked pictures of a friend or something to another. Naked pictures of a friend. Naked pictures of a friend or something to another. A friend or something to another.
That's quite an accusation, Jay.
Well, that's a totally normal
Is this a Dan edit? What? I don't need that.
thing, though.
Must be.
Based?
Wow.
Wow. Yikes. That's all right. At least he's not shocking a dog.
The values
Did
that
everybody do that?
I'm talking about.
Hassan's fall from grace will have to be studied for generations. Like, I don't. Why he decided going on a China trip like so recently after a big drama that got him a lot of negative attention is beyond me.
I mean, he probably
he's
had
gonna fall
this.
any day now.
This
He's
was
falling.
planned pretty far in advance, I imagine.
Was it?
Probably, yeah. It was definitely.
I felt like
it was definitely coordinated with the state, 1,000,000,000,000%. So I'm sure they must.
Sure,
have
but
planned.
like you'd think that he would like say like, "Ooh, this might be too much like ill will towards me. I should probably like reschedule." Right?
I don't know. Would it be ill will towards him? He's so protected on Twitch. It's very frustrating. There's like no chance that his platform there will ever be threatened because there's just no other left-leaning person that's like large enough to do it. So he enjoys a lot of institutional monopoly power, I guess you would say. Jesus. And then the fact that
Wait, you're telling me you don't think Mike from PA can take over?
Yeah, true. Yeah, so I mean, if he doesn't have to worry about that, then the only thing he has to worry about is getting banned, which obviously that's never going to happen. And then Asmongold and him kind of try to stay out of each other's lanes so that they're not, I guess, like having to fight too much. So it's easier for both of them. Like they're both like self-interested to not fight each other. So yeah, cringe.
If you're Hassan, isn't there a worry that like that all the bad publicity that you're getting, or all like the kind of malattention you're getting, is end up going to like hurting your viewer? And Hassan cares about viewer count. That's going to like hurt your viewers and whatnot, and you're going to end up like, if you end up in a bad position with the broader like Twitch community or just like broader internet in general.
I don't know. His viewership is probably pretty ideologically bought in at this point to the things that he's saying. So I don't know how much threat there is to him losing viewership over stuff like this. I'm just not sure.
Also, it's not affecting his viewership numbers, but it is affecting like collabs, right? Because he's really pissed about the fucking.
Yeah, but that had to do more with
the events.
Terrorist shit more than anything else.
Yeah, but still, he's like he was really pissed about that. Like, I don't know if he'd be more so if he's doing like China trips. I don't think that affect it.
I don't think China trips are going
He's
to impact
already-
any collabs. All these companies work with fucking China anyway, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
True. I don't know. It just seems to me like he had a broader image of like he was like a left streamer, right? Kind of like opposite Asmongold. Even though like obviously not if you actually pay attention to him. But that was like the broader perception of him. But I think that by hurting his perception by shocking a dog and lying about it, and then like doing pretty clear like propaganda for China they get clowned on for. I think that. I just wonder if that is going to end up hurting him in the long run.
Yeah, but who's
in a way
clowning
that
on him? It's
he-
just people who already disagree with him, right? Like, is anybody?
No, I
new?
think that it's people who like weren't really aware. I think there's now people who weren't previously aware of like just how insane he was. He thought just kind of didn't pay much attention to him. Who are like, oh my gosh, like what is he doing, right? Like, and the new attention brought to him. I mean, maybe this is probably like what Dan would be hoping for, right? Is that like there's gonna be so much new hate brought to him. So we'll see. But I would worry about that as Hassan.
You're talking about like hurting like his growth, but his growth is already like really limited. So that's like the other factors that if you don't have that much room to grow, then you're not really affected when your growth is stunted.
Yeah, I mean, question would be, was he growing before? How many like kind of normie viewers was he just picking up on a regular basis, and how many of those people will now be dissuaded from?
I think he's been
joining
pretty
him?
handicapped for a while in terms of being able to grow. Because he's kind of locked to Twitch as a platform, and that's it. He can't doesn't seem like he's able to go anywhere else.
Sure, but like, do we think that his entire viewer base was like bought into all of his,
Probably most of them, yeah.
Marxist tanky
Yeah,
stuff?
they have to.
At this point, I mean, after this guy's fucking virtue signal on Israel-Palestine for fucking 2 years, right? I feel like you're pretty bought in ideologically to his position at this point.
Well, maybe for Israel-Palestine stuff, for like there are like people who are like super, pro-Palestine, but aren't tanky, right?
Yeah, probably, yeah. But the crossover is
But
probably pretty...
Hassan's a tanky.
Yeah, I
Like,
feel like
you
if
can
you're
hide
a
that.
Hassan
Exactly.
fan, you're probably like pretty close to being there full-time anyway, would be my guess.
It's probably a pretty casual fan of his that might be disaffected. But like if you lose those, right?
Yeah, but if you're a casual fan, you in America, you don't even know anything about Mao or China or anything of that bullshit. So, like, how are you even gonna talk to a normal person to make them realize, like, hey, like, simping for Mao is probably like really cringe. Like, most Americans don't know anything about Mao or China or anything. So it was like, oh, I don't know. His trip just seemed like a cool, like, he had fun. He went on a little like a little trip where you got to see how cool China was, basically, right?
I think that him like so clearly like contradicting himself and being like, oh, they wasn't censorship. They just had to like make sure it didn't have any like we weren't making fun of Mao, right? And like those clips that
that
were,
was bad.
like,
I agree that was bad, but I don't think that Hassan didn't know that was going to happen. He got fucked on that. He really didn't think he was going to get fucked on that, especially because he has like a little fucking state-sponsored tour guide. So that was just that wasn't planned. He didn't want that to happen. That was just rip.
Yeah, but then like why go on stream and talk about like
he has to defend it because he's shit on America.
He has to spin it.
Yeah, him defending that action is like the reason why people like him, and it's everybody now in fucking media, avoid debates, is because you've built up this caricature of a thing for so fucking long that if you actually directly confront the real thing, it's why you can never talk to me, right? If you directly confront the real thing, your fan base is going to see very quickly, like, wait a second, was this whole fucking shit a lie? And that's a really difficult position to be locked in. But that, unfortunately, that happened. They got a confrontation with like, oh wait, what is actually happening in China? So Hassan had to defend it. He's roped into defending it ideologically. There's no way he can't not defend it.
Sure.
Right? Because what's he going to say? Come on and say, okay, well, actually, maybe China's policing is worse than the U.S. He can't do that. The U.S. is literally fucking, fascist state to Trump or to Hassan or whatever. And so, yeah,
but why would he need to say that, like, make fun of, I feel like the make fun of Mao thing, why, I feel like he could have spun that in any other way that would have been better. They could have said, like, oh, we want to make sure, like, we aren't, like, terrorists or something, because
they weren't doing anything. They were literally just making fun of Mao. What are they going to do? How is he going to spin that? Bro.
It's a TSA security clearance, right? Like, who knows?
True.
On Asmongold, I'm interested. Okay, I rewatched the call that was leaked for the Mizkif stuff recently, and I was reminded that like Asmongold was like remarkably sharp on like what people's motivations were and what would need to happen like in that conversation and whatnot. And like I was like, wow, he's actually a smart individual, and like being able to see that like, well, this one thing might not mean one thing for the other thing. Do you think that like that would imply that like his current kind of just glazing of the administration is there's like bad faith, like he knows that what's happening is wrong or bad, but he's just riding the train? Or is there like something else going on with his cognitive process there?
No, I think he probably just largely agrees with it. No, what part of it would have to be bad faith?
Well, like when we're talking about tariffs and these, saying like, whatever's gonna be great, ignores like all of the, no, this is obviously gonna raise prices. How like even just the mechanics of that work.
I don't think he knows the mechanics. I think Asmongold appears smart because I've said this before. There are people. He's got like a good heuristic. He's got like a good way of like viewing the reality and doing like pattern recognition and all this bullshit. But in any area where he would have to learn actual discrete facts to understand a thing, if he has to do that, he's done, because he's too lazy to do any homework or research or read, especially because he's decently intelligent. So if anything is required of him to learn a thing, so like what do tariffs do? What are the impacts of tariffs? Like that would require him to actually read and study up a little bit on a thing. He's not going to do that. He's always going to be too lazy to do that.
Oh, so you're saying that, so then the reason why he would have been so on point with the Mizkif stuff was because that just more of like an intuitive relation,
just like
or like just social thing of like, here's what we need to,
It was like his bag, right? It's literally affecting him personally. So obviously, it's gonna take way more of it. He's gonna care way more if he's getting it right, versus just watching tweets of the illegals getting rounded up or whatever.
Thank you. Oh my god. Well, any final thoughts or opinions?
Not really. Do you have any further questions about legal stuff? Happy to provide. I can be the next legal orbiter who eventually goes and stabs you in the back, like I thought I'll do or go crazy. So,
are you a legal person? Who are you?
Yeah, that
Wait,
position?
are you like a lawyer or what?
I am going to law school. Currently a legal assistant. So.
Wow.
Yeah, very good.
Read the response, Dink Dog. Read what response? Fuck. That doesn't sound like a serious position. I'm sure you're tired of discussing it, but what's the point of messaging an unrealistic position? Well, one, I think it's the morally correct position, so I'll message that because I think it's correct. I don't think it's impossible. We lack imagination.
Oh, so on your conversation with Hutch, about like he seemed to be he had the impression that like you were saying that the president needed to spearhead this. Wouldn't that, and you were disagreeing. You said this wasn't ever something that you had attached to it. Wouldn't that kind of need to? I think that by promoting the idea that this needs to be something to be done, wouldn't that be something that the president would kind of need to run on and platform on? Is like we need to hold these people accountable and like we need to do that.
Otherwise, sure, but once he's in office, I mean, it's not like he has to spend all his time on it. Hutch
he doesn't have to do it personally.
Weird
but
position
like,
that he was like Hutch just had this position that made it sound like he would have to spend like an inordinate amount of time doing it, which I just don't know where that came from.
Well, I think he's saying that it would burn an inordinate amount of time of like political goodwill.
If that's his position, I didn't hear that at all. It sounded like he was saying that once he was in office, he'd only be able to do one thing, and if he was spending all of his time on this thing, he wouldn't be able to do other things. That's what I heard.
I heard him saying that because if you have the president doing this, it's going to be seen as so partisan. That's why he wanted a special why it's going to be done like through a special counsel, and like why it need to be done like very properly, right?
I mean, I support that. It would have to be a special counsel. The president himself can't do it, right? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but like the president seeming removed from like the question would be like if God willing Gavin Newsom wins in 2028, should he have platformed on or ran on this as part of his platform?
Yeah, on accountability, I think so, 100%. Of course.
Or be like but then if you do it on is that going to like, so then I suppose his what Hutch might say is that like that's not going to be a political winner, right? If it seems like we're just doing retribution and we lose.
Why they do retribution? They ran a retribution over and over and over again.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying what Hutch's point would be.
I understand. Why can't it be like why are we automatically conceding that like retribution is a bad thing? If people do bad things, there should be retribution. This has been the most retributive fucking administration.
Well, that sounds like justice, not retribution.
Then sure, then call it justice. I mean, it is justice, yeah. But I mean, like,
yeah, call it justice.
Justice and retribution is the same thing. Well, I'm not saying that you were the one who said retribution or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But like, if you want to call it justice or retribution, I mean, this is just a perspective on the same thing, right? That's all that is.
Well, I would say that justice is like what is actually true about the matter, right? Whereas retribution.
Yeah, but there's obviously going to be a different frame of reference. The person who feels like they're being unjustly prosecuted isn't going to call it justice. They're going to feel like it's retribution, right?
Yeah, but whether justice is being done is more of like a objective question, right?
That's great that you think that, but like if that was the case, we wouldn't need.
I understand that it's a perception problem, but like
right?
Yes. I understand that, but just not to say like, oh, whatever. There's no truth of the matter. Because I think it might be important to like just actually keep in mind what things are, but not saying that you weren't, but just for maybe the wider audience.
Okay. Wait, more Hassan slot. 1 sec.
It's because I am a white supremacist. I'm moving to the white supremacist town, okay? That's why. I'm a white supremacist. I'm white, okay? I'm white. I'm a white man. I'm a cisgender, heterosexual white man. You got me. You caught me, okay? You caught me because I want these white enclaves to survive and exist so we can have sundown towns and finally restore the white caliphate. You fucking got me, dude. It starts with the implicit biases. It starts with the blind spots. Despite the fucking tens of thousands of hours poured over critically examining white supremacy and how it manifests in every orifice of American society, you, Chatter, you caught me! It was actually my privileged blind spot that you identified, and now the mask is slipping. Shut the fuck up. God damn, dude. You're so fucking stupid.
Uh-oh. He-Man.
What is this like? Shadow was cooking.
Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. No, I'm not okay. No, of course I'm not fucking okay, dude. I can't even crack jokes at the expense of a bunch of inbred white douchebags that decided to fucking try and build a failed white supremacist enclave in the middle of fucking nowhere where they're in self-exile without a bunch of chatter saying that I'm actually blinded by white supremacist values. How can I be okay? I hate all of you. I hate the woke. I hate woke. I hate the left. I hate the woke. Fuck. We will never achieve anything. We'll never build communism, socialism, any sort of progress whatsoever. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's not happening anytime soon, regardless. But we're not even building even a modest expansion of social safety nets, okay? Because this kind of mentality is just cancer at the heart of any kind of fucking coalition building, any kind of movement building. You can even fucking make a couple jokes about people being like, "Oh, it's a privileged blind spot," and now I'm crashing out because I'm a white supremacist, okay? Just get the fucking ball rolling ahead of time. Make some fucking TikToks, chatters. It's time. Let's go, Hassan. Consistently dropping the ball on black issues. He needs to stop talking about black issues. It's just like you're centering your entire worldview around being a fucking smarmy douchebag. Who the fuck? What the fuck are you doing? We're getting to a goddamn point where if people want to fucking be white supremacists, they can openly say it. You want a chief ship because you're not an organization. You have no idea about movement building. You've clearly never been a part of movement. You, whatever movement you're a part of, you are destroying, okay? Whatever fucking movement you have actually been a part of, you are actively undermining and destroying. You literally are born with a copy of the fucking CIA disruption manual. You, chatter. I am not a movement, exactly. But even though I'm not a movement and an entertainer, nonetheless, you still treat this as though it is yet another opportunity for COINTELPRO. And it's not that you're getting paid by the fucking CIA. You're just doing it for fun because you're a fucking moron. You're a fucking moronic dipshit. Every single thing must be designed according to your own personal values. That's it. You're selfish. You're stupid. And even when something is irrelevant and unproductive and utterly for entertainment purposes, you can't fucking stop yourself. You have no charity. You have no grace. You're just a fucking narcissistic loser. Okay? And you behave like a little federal agent for free. You're catastrophizing. You really have no clue you're crashing out for a place of sensitivity? I'm not. I'm crashing out because I can't fucking stand losers like you. Okay? I can't stand it. And guess what? No one can. No one can stand you. No one. You need to really stop behaving like this.
Oh, no. You okay,
Fuck,
buddy?
man.
Jesus.
Now that is an example of justice.
The problem is, you think you're doing progressive politics, when in fact, what you are doing is being a fucking annoying woke scold. Your own personal inability to understand context, nuance, whether someone is actually joking or not, is not actually doing praxis. You're not doing praxis. You're posting in a fucking Twitch chat. You goddamn loser. Shut the fuck up. You are so unimaginably insufferable. You are not actually doing praxis right now. Please understand this. Remember, this all started because you had to argue that sundown towns are cool. You are a mentally deficient, absolute moron. If you think I said
You need therapy
sundown
for real,
towns
he
are
says.
cool, that is not a thing that I said. I actually never said that. You have to make up what I said in order to justify your worldview, in order to justify your smarmy, annoying, narcissistic tendencies. This is what I mean. Stop. Stop masquerading as though there is a real point of contention that you're advocating for here. There is none. You just want to be heard because you're a fucking loser and no one cares about your opinion. Okay? That's why you're doing this. I hate the tendency of the left to make it seem as though as long as they use academic language and emancipatory language, they can just be a fucking woke scold, boring loser who just everyone has to pay attention to. And the other problem is there are plenty of people that are going to fucking hear this shit and go, you know what? Was that person a black person? Was that person a brown person? Maybe they do actually have a real serious issue with what Hassan is saying. No, you're just being fucking insufferable and also incredibly cynical. And not only are you being insufferable and incredibly cynical, you're also lying about my positions now. If you have to justify your worldview or what you did just now by lying about what I'm saying after spending years in this fucking community, then maybe you should really reconsider how you approach the subject matter. Why? Why do you feel the need to do this? Day one, because your blood pressure is at insane levels right now? Just stop being fucking weird. Stop being annoying. The reason why I pop off like this is because it literally, it's the most annoying tendency. It's the most annoying tendency that people have. It's so frustrating. Holy fuck. It's just, this is the one aspect that the right unironically nails when they say, oh, this is just like virtue signaling. Because that's what it is. This is not even like, you don't genuinely believe this. You don't genuinely believe this is my position. Because if you did, then you're a fucking moron, right? Like if you spent years and years in the community of someone who is justifying sundown towns because they think it's cool, then you have to be a fucking moron. So which one is it? Are you mentally deficient? Or are you being cynical here for the purpose of winning an argument?
Damn.
And then here come every single person that will turn around and in the least charitable way go, you didn't say you like sundown towns. You said, let these fucking mentally ill white supremacist losers self-exile. Because that's what I said. But you're not going to actually say that. You're going to say, Hassan, you justified the existence of whites-only towns. Okay? That's what you're going to say. That's your misunderstanding. And I totally understand if someone has never encountered my commentary before, and maybe they misunderstand my position. But if you're in this community, you don't have to masturbate to a deliberate misunderstanding, okay? It's just so frustrating. I hate having to deal with, you said you like pancakes, you must hate waffles as the primary fixture of people's politics on a daily fucking basis. Because that's all this is. That's all this is. You're not doing politics. You're not doing praxis. You will never understand the point I'm trying to make because being insufferable is your politics, by the way. Me. I'm being insufferable. Pay attention to me. I'm using academic language. I'm using emancipatory language. You have to listen to me. I'm going to tell you right now that you're actually hurting my feelings, but you're not hurting my white feelings. You're hurting my feelings as someone of insert marginalized identity. That this way, other people who will encounter this conversation later down the line, because I have a million different fucking haters who are clipping right now, salivating at the prospect of this conversation taking place, are going to use the most negative framing to cut 1,000 other fucking arguments about, oh, Hassan is a white supremacist. See, snap now. Okay?
Jeez.
Oh, gotcha. Politics is boring. No, politics is not boring. You can make politics fun. Okay? You can make it fun. I try to all the time. In spite of the fucking best attempts of the most smarmy, annoying fucking douchebag loser on the goddamn planet.
Man, he really likes
don't
that
refresh their logs.
smarmy.
Yeah, I know. False dichotomies. I can see this is a sore point for you, bro. I just sound like that. Haha, I don't have to try. The victim complex is so wild. I'm not a victim, dumbass. I'm not. You are. And you're also self-victimizing. And you're also just fucking a nuisance. I'm not saying I'm a victim. I'm not a fucking victim at all. I'm a profoundly privileged person who at the very least tries to use their privilege to fucking reach a broader audience and try to change their minds in spite of your fucking shitty best attempts to try to gatekeep any kind of fucking progressive movement from happening because you're a fucking loser who is a hipster with their politics. Don't ever come in here and say this is life or death for me and you don't take this shit seriously because if this was life or death for you, you would probably not behave like this. Don't refresh this ban. I'm gonna refresh and then ban. Sobering, bro, this is entertaining. How long can you keep this crash out going? Oh, dude, yeah. I wasn't actually getting bitched at by a 34-year-old Twitch streamer that I fucking financially supported in a community that I enjoy being a part of for the better half of the last 30 minutes as a 40-year-old dipshit from fucking Oregon who tries to present himself as like the champion of woke.
Shit.
It was actually fun for me. I really made you crash out, bro. Fucking idiot. You sound like one of these goddamn Gray Sock account trolls.
Oh my God.
A dude that came in as a first-time chatter.
He's been
I
holding his
wasn't, I'm just
back for
pretending, dude. I was
years.
just trying to piss you off. You're fucking 40 years old, dude. Wake up. God, what a fucking pathetic way of existence. Holy shit.
Holy shit. Wait, one more.
How can one guy get one guy? It's so hard.
With the lightning power that Zeus granted you. Yo, I think Kai moved her paw striker with the lightning power that Zeus granted you. Dude, that's so funny, dude. You're so fucking funny. Confident AF, dude.
Oh, no, not good.
It's funny when a 14-year-old is making that joke. It's not funny when a 35-year-old comes into this chat beating a dead horse or an abused dog in this instance. And why would I want to? Yeah, it's a fucking old ass meme at this point. Dude, that was freaking fire though. That was funny.
Oh no.
You are confident AF, chatter. You really are. I hope to God you're like 12, please. It's a 2015 account. You're not gonna make it. You're not gonna make it. You're a whole ass adult. One of the guys that wait, you found the social media profile of one of the guys that was making a dog joke? MHUD says, one of the dog joke people that got banned earlier.
Nice.
Following.
Pretty sure you get permabanned in Twitch for that.
Whitewash.
I think people have gotten permabanned for that, but
L's.
okay, based.
Well, Hassan can dox people. That's already known, so.
It's in the rules.
Nice profile, man. Hunting down dissenters.
True.
Gaslight phase. Hunting down dissenters.
Uh-oh.
Do as I say, not as I do. Let me repeat it again. Do as I say, not as I do.
Dude.
Maybe have a dog and
This isn't good, but I'm
if
doing
you
it
don't
right
want a
now.
fucking question when you're evasive. You're no different than the GOP. Then be better yourself.
Ooh.
Brother, this dude has been waiting. He has been fucking waiting. This is a dissenter.
What are the odds he says he's a DGG operative?
No.
This is a dissenter.
I think, do you know where these guys are probably coming from, if I had to guess?
Meds, right now.
Asman?
I think so, yeah. I bet it's Asman's
right
community.
now. If you're saying, I'm no different than the GOP, and you find yourself in agreement with this fucking person, you really got to get your priorities in order. This is how it goes, though. This is how it goes. Motherfuckers stay in here for like 40 months, subscribing for 40 months, and then one instance, and they flip. This is the negative consequence of this is the other side of the parasocial coin. People become literal fucking lunatics, okay? And it's not like they go, it's not like they go away hunting down. Like you're making it seem like a guy who came in here making a fucking Doctober 7 joke. We hunted him down when he's using the same username on every single profile.
Rent free.
Maybe you just feel kind of embarrassed that these are the guys who are still carrying on this battle. His username, I know his city, fave game, fave teams, and fave food just from Reddit. Get real. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds kind of threatening, no? A little bit?
It's also funny because like
Spooky.
people literally go from.
No, I think that's in support of him.
Oh, okay. True.
People get a fraction of the microscopic lens that they put me under. Okay, just a fraction. Like you don't get, you don't get the entire lens of scrutiny in front of millions of people, and you don't like it. While you're in the process of misunderstanding, while you're in the process of literally doing that, yeah, there is the 10%. There is the 10% that will get swept away by other donkeys, but for the most part, it is exactly what you suspect. It's like a guy who's a dick tone viewer, lolly
tone.
profile.
Ooh. Tech tone call out.
Blacks taking L's account watcher, enjoyer. Their entire fucking subreddit history shows that as well. And then the guys who are not like that get very offended when you point it out. Guys who actually did believe the fucking meta will get really pissed off when you point out that like their allies are disgusting. Instead of being like, well, maybe I got a little heated.
Damn. Well.
Classic Osama.
Been fun, been fruitful. Time to connect. Okay, I love you guys. Be careful.
All right. Bye bye.